It is draft night from Chalk in Chisholm Creek. Along with Will Brewer, I am Colby Daniels. We've been excited about this night for quite some time. We have a packed house ready for the NBA draft tonight. Will, big thanks to Kona Brewing, by the way. They have sent the Kona girls out here. We have Kona beer specials all night long. We have awesome giveaways, including a Magic Johnson autographed basketball. We have a Kona Grizzly cooler. We have a Kona skateboard. Every purchase of a Kona beer tonight gets you an extra entry into these giveaways. It's going to be exceptional. I am so excited about tonight. And look, we're about to watch a bunch of basketball players realize their dream come true tonight, and that's one of the best parts about the NBA draft. And at the same time, we have an NBA team in Oklahoma City, and tonight potentially is that fork in the road where the fortune of Oklahoma City Thunder basketball potentially changes forever. I cannot wait to watch what's going to happen over the next 3 hours.
Man, I really feel like this is going to be a big night for the entire NBA, not only the Oklahoma City Thunder. A lot of franchises really want to make big moves here in this offseason, so I really believe that this is going to be a big night, full of surprises. That's just my prediction, but a bunch of players realizing their dreams. They've worked their whole lives for this. For this moment, and you can just see the players were walking out with their families. You can tell how proud that their parents were. It's just a great moment to see.
The suit game, always outstanding part of the coverage. I grew up in the 90s. That was when I was a really big NBA fan, and you have the Jalen Roses in the red suit with the pinstripes, and Samaki Walker. I don't know if you famously remember the Samaki Walker hat, but the draft fits are just everything you want to see.
Absolutely. The draft fits. Every year I feel like we're getting something new. I remember just a few years ago, Trae Young came with the shorts.
Yeah.
So every year there's something new, and these guys really took it up a level with their suit game this year.
I said then, and I still believe it, Trae Young's going to regret this someday. I still think it's one of those just bizarre looks. But hey, you know what? He is nobody's talking about that now, which would be the bad thing. He's proved a lot of people wrong. All right, we're going to get to the draft in a second. Will, we have big news in the NBA world, and this is also of interest to Thunder fans because Russell Westbrook looks like he's on the verge of being traded to the LA Lakers. I made the joke earlier on Twitter that this is fitting because the Lakers exited in the first round this year. That's what we've known Russell Westbrook to do basically since Kevin Durant left. First round exit. But in all seriousness, if this trade does go down the way that everybody's anticipating, are the Lakers contenders? Or, I think they were anyway when healthy, but how does this change things for you as far as that perspective?
Well, I think adding Russell Westbrook will bring the Lakers another playmaker, a guy who's going to play hard every night, a guy who's going to take a lot of pressure off of LeBron to be the guy that has the ball all the time. Russell Westbrook, he knows how to run the offense, and he's going to be able to give the ball to the big guys like Anthony Davis if Andre Drummond stays. So Russell Westbrook is going to be a guy that adds a lot of playmaking. He's going to add a lot of offense. But when it comes to playoff basketball, that's my only question with him because we know his IQ, it comes and goes. He doesn't make the best decisions all the time. So the Lakers are going to be playing big games throughout the season into the playoffs. How is that going to work with a guy like LeBron James and Anthony Davis? That's my only question.
I believe that if the Lakers have LeBron James and Anthony Davis and those guys are healthy in the postseason, they're a contender regardless of what the rest of the roster looks like. Now, you certainly need players to make big plays throughout the course of a championship run outside of your superstars, but we saw that the last time with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And it just seemed like there was always a different guy stepping up, and nobody anticipated KCP was going to be one of those guys. Russell Westbrook, I think, is an interesting dynamic to this team because what he does is I think he allows you to get to that postseason point with your two superstars healthy. Russell Westbrook is tremendous in the regular season. We've seen this, right? Like, defenses don't approach you the same way in the regular season. Defenses don't bring out, they don't take away all the things that they take away in the postseason, which allows Russell Westbrook to do what he does in the regular season. And he's a guy that just plays harder than everybody else in the regular season. So I think he can be a minute eater for the Lakers over the course of 82 games, allow LeBron James to play less minutes, allow Anthony Davis to play less minutes without, maybe getting caught in that play-in tournament like we saw them get caught this year, and be in a little bit more comfortable situation in the regular season while those guys are still getting rest. And then when it comes to postseason play, it's the LeBron and Anthony Davis show, and if Russell gives you anything positive, so be it. But I just look at this more as he's going to help you get to the point that you need to be at with two guys that right now have a lot of mileage, or with Anthony Davis just has a long history of injuries.
Absolutely. Russell Westbrook, what he brings to the table, just that his high energy, high motor. The regular season is going to be great for him because he's going to be able to get his triple-doubles. He's going to be able to win a lot of games with the Lakers. And he's going to allow a 36-year-old LeBron James, Anthony Davis, who's been banged up his entire career, he's going to allow them to not have to play so many minutes. And Russell Westbrook, he's fine with playing 40-plus minutes a game. I mean, he's had injury problems himself, but we know that his motor is not going to allow him to play any different. So Russ is going to bring them, like you said, he's going to be a minute eater. And once the playoffs get here, LeBron and AD can handle the rest. But just throughout that regular season, the duration of it, just give the ball to Russ.
Let's just call it regular season horsepower, is what Russell Westbrook gives to the Lakers. The number one pick is in, by the way. The Detroit Pistons have made their selection. Will, earlier this week there were rumors. Now, look, I'm not going to pretend to say that these were real or not real. Regardless of whether they were fake news or whatever you want to call them, it was thrown out that they had offered Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the number 6 pick to Detroit for number 1. That got a lot of Thunder fans really upset, I think, is the main reaction. I was on the other side of this equation simply because I think if you're a small market team and you have the opportunity to trade anybody for a younger player with a higher ceiling, I think you have to do it. We'll talk about that in just a second, but Detroit is making the selection right now. The NBA draft is underway. Cade Cunningham, guard, Oklahoma State, is the number 1 selection in the 2021 NBA draft to the Detroit Pistons.
And this is a kid, he absolutely deserves it. What he did with Oklahoma State, a lot of people didn't really think he was going to pick Oklahoma State, but for him to go there, have the type of season that he did, completely turn that organization around, got to the tournament, you can just tell he's a leader. He's got length. The prototypical, I guess you want to say, the prototypical guy to run the show now. I mean, a lot of these guys are 6'8", running the show, like the Ben Simmons, like the Luka Doncic. So Cade Cunningham's coming in 6'8". He's going to be able to run the show. He's a great passer. He can rebound the basketball. Great scorer as well. Detroit's got their guy of the future.
What's the negative on Cade? Because I don't see one, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're going to be the scout in the room that's going to play devil's advocate, what are you pointing out? Is there anything? Because I don't see a hole in his game, and I think not only does he have an MVP ceiling, I think this guy could be a top 5 player in the NBA at some point in his career. The ceiling is enormous, but also I think the floor is really high as well. I don't know how this guy's a bad player because there's nothing he's not good at.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to nitpick something that's just wrong with this game. I mean, really, I guess maybe if you look at the defensive end, he might have to be matched up with some really quick point guards. But, I mean, he's still a pretty solid defender at that. So if you want to nitpick anything, it's probably the defense. But, I mean, who really plays lockdown defense in the NBA anymore?
Yeah, that's true. But, look, we have seen him play good defense is the thing. It's not as though he's one of those guys that you have to worry about not being able to do it. It's there. I think with anybody that is the main ball handler and the main scorer for a team, you worry about them exerting too much effort defensively because of what they need to give you on the other end. And I think that was certainly the case with Cade at times at Oklahoma State. But it's not a worry for me in terms of you're in the final 5 minutes of a game and somebody's going to try and get the best matchup. I don't think they're just pointing at Cade Cunningham saying we're going at that guy to get a bucket.
Yeah, I mean, that was just me trying to nitpick
anything, for sure.
Because, like you said, there's not really anything wrong with his game. I mean, he brings so much to the table at 6'8". The things that he can do, attacking the basket, shooting the basketball. He shot the 3 at 40% in college. So, I mean, it would be interesting to see how that translates. But, I mean, Cade Cunningham, he's the truth.
And here's the other thing that I think sometimes is hard for us that are not talking to these guys on a daily basis, that don't get to go through these interviews. Like, we can all watch the basketball part of it, and we can all make our educated guesses on whether these guys are going to turn into MVPs or all-stars or role players, or, we all see these guys differently, but we all have an opinion about the basketball part. I think when you're going to be the face of a franchise, when you're going to be the guy they're bringing in to turn things around, when you're going to be the point guard and the guy with the ball in his hands at the end of the game, I think that's where, personality traits become a big part of this equation. And I've never met Cade Cunningham. I've never interviewed him, but everybody that I've spoken with in Stillwater, Oklahoma, that has had communication with this kid has nothing but good things to say. I think we all have the impression, just based on all the media availability we've ever seen from the guy, he says the kind of things that make you say, as an NBA franchise, that's the guy we want as our leader.
Absolutely. He has a really positive energy about him, and you can just tell the guys in Oklahoma State really gravitated towards him, and he was an extension of the coach on the floor. Everything that they did, Oklahoma State, they were such a close-knit group, you can tell. And I think that just says everything you need to know about Cade Cunningham's leadership.
Yeah, again, shoots the ball well, terrific vision, terrific size for the position, terrific leadership. I just don't see a downside for this guy, other than maybe the fact that he's going to have to play his home games in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah, that's probably the only thing. I knew that you were going to go there. Yeah, that's probably the only thing. But I think he's truly embraced it. I think he knew as soon as Detroit landed the number 1 pick that he was most likely going to go there. And I think he's all in with Detroit, despite having to play in Detroit, Michigan. I think he's accepted it. I think he's accepted the challenge. I think that just says a lot about his character.
There was speculation this week that maybe Detroit was weighing Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green and Evan Mobley with that number 1 pick. And most people that were on Twitter earlier today saw Woj's tweet, 5-6 hours ago, stating that Detroit had finally made their decision, that it was, in fact, Cade Cunningham. I kind of laughed at that because that to me seemed like, look, they're going to do their due diligence. They have the number 1 pick. They have the obligation to scout Jalen Green and Evan Mobley and make sure that, and for Cade Cunningham, look at all the negatives that there could be with him when you're making a selection like that. So I don't doubt the fact that they were really doing their homework on all 3 of the players, but I do have a hard time believing that at any point they considered one of the others over Cade Cunningham. For me, I look at the tiers of this NBA draft, and I certainly believe there are 4 guys that are way ahead of everybody else.
Absolutely.
But I think within those 4 guys, to me at least, Cade Cunningham is the undisputed number 1 pick in this draft. I like the upside of some of the other guys. I like the polish of some of the other guys. There's good things about all of them. But if it's me, I don't care what my situation is, Cade Cunningham has the highest upside of them all. He's undisputed number 1 pick in my mind.
Absolutely. When you're a team like Detroit, I mean, of course, you're looking at the rest of the players, like the Jalen Suggs, Evan Mobley, but at the top of your list, it's Cade Cunningham. And then let the rest of the chips fall where they may.
All right, the Houston Rockets selecting number 2. The pick is in. Adam Silver is announcing this right now. Once again, this was one that was not a secret, and for that matter, the next pick shouldn't be a secret either, as long as Cleveland doesn't trade out of the number 3 pick. But Jalen Green is the pick to the Houston Rockets with the number 2 overall selection. To be honest with you, Will, until about a month ago, I didn't know a whole lot about this guy. Hadn't really watched much, and to say that I was wowed within the first 30 seconds of watching what this guy's capable of is an understatement. You can see why, at the beginning of this, it was Cade Cunningham and maybe Evan Mobley and Jalen Suggs, but you can see why Jalen Green all of a sudden was put in that group of the elite players in this draft. I mean, he just jumps off the screen at you when you watch him play.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at a guy like Jalen Green's highlight tapes are made to make a guy look good. But when you watch a guy like Jalen Green, it really jumps out at you, like you said. You're really like, wow, okay, Jalen Green is special. He's got freak athleticism. He went the G League route. He could have went to probably any major D1 school in the country, but he chose to go to the G League route. And I think it was great for him to get that kind of professional experience. I mean, and he scored the ball really well. Like it says up here, he's a shot creator. But what jumped off the page to me is his athleticism, and I think he's going to be able to do some really special things in the NBA with his athleticism.
If Cade Cunningham's the best player in this draft with the most upside as far as potentially being an MVP caliber guy, Jalen Green might be the guy in year 1 and 2 that's on SportsCenter more than any other player in this draft, right?
Absolutely. Just his athleticism, it's something to behold. And I think if any of these guys in the NBA are caught slipping, Jalen Green's going to put them on a poster, and he will be on SportsCenter.
Same question. What's the negative side of Jalen Green as far as what you can tell? If you're playing devil's advocate, we like these guys a lot for a reason. By the way, Jalen Green's suit is nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah, that is spectacular. That's probably number one for the night. But if I have to nitpick anything off of Jalen Green's game, I mean, I want to go back to defense, but I don't want to keep harping on that with these guys. But maybe his ability to shoot the three at a high level in the NBA. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, he's a really special player, and I think he'll be able to develop a lot of these skills as he gets in the NBA. But as far as being NBA ready, he's one of these guys that is completely NBA ready.
Athletically NBA ready. And look, I think playing against grown men in the G League is also one of those things that while the numbers may not be off the charts, I think going into year one as a rookie, you're just a little bit more prepared for what exactly you're going to see on a nightly basis.
Right.
And you understand how hard it's going to be going into the NBA because of the G League path, which I think is a really good thing. It also, I think when you're in the G League and it's so much about development versus being in the NBA and what they're going to ask of you, for me, I'm looking more at the physical tools than necessarily how he was used, but I've heard shot selection thrown out there with him. My biggest thing is the guy can get his own shot, and he can find shots on the floor without the help of anybody else, and that's invaluable.
Absolutely. Like it's set up here, like one of the best things about him was his ability to be a shot creator. And, his just the one dribble, two dribble, he doesn't need a lot of time. He's not really ball dominant, but he can create his own shot without using a lot of time on the shot clock. So that's another thing that you can really like about him.
I'll tell you what he kind of reminded me of, not necessarily from a player standpoint, but just watching like the kinds of plays he makes. A little bit of Anthony Edwards from a year ago.
Oh, absolutely. And just the athleticism, right?
Yeah.
Like Anthony Edwards is a really
Anthony Edwards also looks like a linebacker, and he's so I get that they're different players and they play differently, but when you watch the highlights and the plays that they make, there's a lot of similarities in that regard. Yeah,
I mean, of course they don't have the same body type, but they do have similar scoring abilities, and just like that mentality of just like nothing's going to stop me, I'm going to get a bucket.
Yeah.
So
I do like the comp on him that I've seen most often is Zach LaVine, and I mean, Zach LaVine has turned into a really good outside shooter, but Zach LaVine coming out of UCLA, I think that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, I mean, Zach LaVine, we all know he started out as a dunk contest champion, and that's all that he was known for at first. But, I mean, now we're starting to see his game really expand, and we're seeing him turn into an all-star, a really special player with the ability to create his own shot, be a leader on the court.
Yeah.
That's just something that the NBA does. They turn a really special athlete into a really all-around complete player.
By the way, the deal is official. Per Adrian Wojnarowski, the Lakers and the Wizards have agreed to trade Russell Westbrook. So Westbrook headed home to Los Angeles. He'll be a Laker. We'll hit that a little bit later in the first round as we are buzzing through this thing. Cleveland, once again, the pick is in. No surprise. I'm about to say this before it's selected, but it looks like Evan Mobley, as everybody anticipated, is the selection. And center out of UCLA, 7-footer. Again, if you want to go the comp route, a lot of people have called him Chris Bosh.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comparisons to some really special big men that's played in the NBA. Kevin Garnett, Anthony Davis, Chris Bosh. At 7 foot, he's going to be able to, block shots. He's got a really special offensive game as well. He can stretch the floor. He's a prototypical big man in today's NBA. And on top of that, he can rim protect as well. So a lot of the things that we see a guy like Rudy Gobert do as far as being a rim protector, but he doesn't really have the offensive package.
Yeah.
But then some of the guys like a Jokic who has all the offensive talent but doesn't have really the defense. Evan Mobley has the potential to bring both.
There are different kinds of good defenders as far as big men. There's the Rudy Gobert type that just impacts every shot that's taken inside the paint, and then there's the Bam Adebayos that are so good on the perimeter that he's not a liability when you play a two-man game and he gets switched on. Is Evan Mobley, in your opinion, athletic enough to be the Bam Adebayo type as well?
Man, Bam Adebayo is really special because he can really switch 1 through 5.
Right.
If Evan Mobley's able to do that, he's going to be just as special. I have to see him defend some of these perimeter guys in the NBA, but I think he's got the length. It just depends on his footwork.
Yeah, which is one of my biggest questions for him. But I mean, the guy has tremendous upside. Offensively, what type of player do you see him being?
Man, I really think he's a special player, and I've seen a lot of comparisons to Chris Bosh. I think he'll be able to shoot the three and at least stretch the floor to the mid-range, along with being an inside presence, a post presence, I should say. So I think he's a special talent. I think his skill set is just really, really unique, you know.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a special player for sure.
It generally takes big guys longer to adapt to the NBA than it does the perimeter guys. Plus, they don't have the ball in their hands nearly as much. And look, I think if we're talking about the league 20 years ago, Evan Mobley's probably the number one pick, and nobody's even questioning it. I think he is worthy of being that pick if that's the kind of basketball that's being played in the NBA. I would have a really hard time taking Evan Mobley, even in this spot, if you're the number 3 team and Jalen Suggs is on the board, because in today's NBA, you have to have ball-dominant players. And I think the world of him, but if you don't have that guy already, and look, Cleveland kind of has 2 of those guys, which is their own issue, so this pick is perfect for them. But if you don't have that guy, I think you always have to take the ball-dominant guy over the big guy.
Absolutely. Like you said, that's what today's NBA is. You got Cade Cunningham, who's going to be able to run the show, Jalen Green, who can get his own shot whenever he wants. I mean, Evan Mobley, they're going to have to run sets for him. They're going to have guys throw the ball into him. Defenses are going to be able to, really key in on him and maybe not even let him get the ball. But like we're saying, Evan Mobley's a really special player, and I think as these years pile on and as he grows into an NBA body, I think he's only listed at 215 right now, but as he grows into an NBA body, he's going to be a force.
Apparently on the ESPN broadcast, Kendrick Perkins just compared Evan Mobley to Bill Russell. So if you were listening to us, that was a really smart move on your part, and you're not having to listen to Kendrick Perkins' ridiculous takes on ESPN. All right, the Toronto Raptors are on the clock. It says the pick is in. Well, this is where we felt like the draft really started. I think Toronto could go a number of ways here. We talked about that tier 1 of players, Jalen Suggs being the last remaining tier 1 player available. This is also a spot that has been reported as up for grabs if somebody wants to trade with Toronto and offer the right package. I think Jalen Suggs is a guy that is also just a can't-miss guy. He's not going to be a bad player in the NBA. Now, we can all debate about what we think his ceiling is, but I'm really excited about what this kid brings to the NBA. Again, a lot like Cade Cunningham, not just because of the basketball stuff, but from a leadership standpoint, all the mental intangibles that he possesses, and he's obviously most known for the big three-pointer in the NCAA championship. But look, we're ready for Toronto's pick in just a matter of moments. But look, if Sam Presti's going to make a move, I think this has always been the spot that we all thought was most up for grabs.
Absolutely. We've heard rumblings that there was talks of a pick swap between these 2 teams. But, if I was Toronto, just thinking of what I need and knowing that Kyle Lowry's out or Kyle Lowry's a free agent, I think just it's a match with Toronto and Jalen Suggs.
Here we go. Adam Silver is at the podium. Toronto, at least as of now, is making the pick. The Toronto Raptors select Scotty Barnes.
Wow.
He's a point forward, I think is the fair way to say it, out of Florida State. First of all, anybody that thinks Scotty Barnes over Jalen Suggs, I'm baffled by. But I've watched a lot of Scotty Barnes, Will, in the last couple days, and I told you this before we started recording today. I want to like Scotty Barnes because you see the size, you see the athleticism, and there's a lot to like there. But at the end of the day, when you're comparing Scotty Barnes to the top 5 guys in this draft, he doesn't shoot the ball well. He's not super dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's not a super dynamic shot creator. I do think he's a good prospect. and I think he can give you a lot of different things. He plays defense, he rebounds, I think he has good court vision, as they're showing the graphic right now, good court vision, versatile defender. But to me, he's not dynamic enough as an athlete, period, or making the basketball plays that I think would allow me to take him over a Jalen Suggs.
Yeah, I'm honestly pretty shocked that they picked Barnes over Jalen Suggs, but Scotty Barnes does bring a lot to the table as in terms of his defense and his court vision. I think probably his defense is NBA ready. Court vision is probably NBA ready, but like you said, he's not a dynamic scorer. Doesn't shoot the ball very well. Maybe the Raptors believe that they can build that into him as the years pile on, because I mean he's got the size, being a versatile defender. I'm trying to figure out like where Toronto wanted to pick him over Suggs, but I mean I can see in terms of his versatility and his ability to pass the ball that they're comparing him to a Draymond Green, and that's what we were saying before the show. So I mean.
Look, I think he fits well with Fred VanVleet, and I don't know what's going to happen with Kyle Lowry ultimately, but for the sake of this argument, let's not throw him into the equation. But Fred VanVleet is going to be your primary ball handler. The Indiana kid that they took a couple years ago.
OG?
Yeah.
Adenobi.
Yeah. And then Pascal Siakam. Like, I think his skill set fits with the other pieces they have. So from a fit standpoint, I like what Scotty Barnes brings and adds to that roster right now. But if you're just talking about best player available, I honestly don't even think it's close. And look, if you're Sam Presti right now and Jalen Suggs is available one pick ahead of you, you've got to be making that call, right?
Absolutely. And then, Orlando, they have point guards. They have Cole Anthony. They have Markelle Fultz. I mean, so do the Orlando Magic just go ahead and make that trade knowing that they have 2 point guards already? Because I know the Thunder would be salivating over a guy like Jalen Suggs. And Orlando doesn't really need a point guard, so, I mean, maybe Oklahoma City's got thrown a bone.
The clock is still ticking with Orlando on the clock. They are, I guarantee 1,000%, they are on the phone right now. Yeah. They are taking calls. They are going to figure out what is potentially the best offer and weigh that versus the player that they believe Jalen Suggs is. Look, I think I felt like Orlando has not been good in the draft for a long time. So if that trend continues, the move here is to trade out of this pick and not select Jalen Suggs. But we will see. I mean, it's one of those things where I think, Oklahoma City has a boatload of picks that they can offer to move up one spot. And if it's me and it's the difference between Jalen Suggs or whoever you're going to get with the next pick, I would have no issue whatsoever trading all 3 of my first rounders. 16, 18, and 6 to move up a spot to take Jalen Suggs, because I think he's that big of a difference maker compared to what the next pick is going to be.
Yeah, we talked about the top 4 guys in this draft, and we talked about Green, we talked about Mobley, we talked about Cade. Suggs is in that group. He's the 4th guy. And while Scotty Barnes is great and everything, Jalen Suggs, I feel, is a guy that you can't miss on. I feel like Orlando's in an interesting spot because they do have 2 point guards. So if I am Sam Presti, I am looking at, okay, do I just go ahead and give all 3 of my picks in the first round to get Jalen Suggs, to get a guy who is one of the top 4 prospects in this draft? I'm looking at that. Or I'm looking at trying to just throw in some of my second round picks. Whatever the case is, I think Jalen Suggs is a guy you can't miss on.
Absolutely. The clock is still ticking, by the way. The Orlando Magic have 1 minute to make their selection. And look, sometimes teams end up making these picks and it's announced later that they work out the details and a pick is traded. That's the big difference with the NFL draft and the NBA draft is, the NFL draft generally, if a pick's going to be traded, it will be announced before that pick is made. Whereas with the NBA, and this has been an annoyance of mine forever, sometimes the team makes the selection. Nobody even knows that it's going to be traded. The guy has to wear the stupid hat of the team that he's never going to play for and go through that entire charade of, the Orlando Magic hat when everybody associated with the Orlando Magic knows he's going to be traded for somebody else. That's my own individual pet peeve about the NBA draft. But look, they're probably not going to announce a trade right now because they're with 10 seconds left. I would assume that Orlando is going to make this selection, and it's going to be Jalen Suggs. I'll be really curious to know within the next 5 or 10 minutes if there's a trade announcement and Oklahoma City potentially does something. But look, Sam Presti is way smarter than either one of us will ever be when it comes to basketball. But it takes two teams. Obviously, they can make all the offers they want. If Orlando doesn't like any of them, then it doesn't matter. But if you're Sam Presti, this is why you have all these draft picks, to move into situations to get game-changing type players. And again, the guy that they might take next, I think, is a good player. But I think Jalen Suggs is considerably better, and I think he's a future NBA All-Star. Absolutely.
Jalen Suggs, just in terms of the leadership and being able to take control of a franchise, he has that. I don't know what Orlando's going to do, but it's going to be interesting.
Here we go. Adam Silver back to the podium. Jalen Suggs is the selection to the Orlando Magic, and I think all the Thunder fans here at Chalk right now just feel gut-wrenched. There was a massive exhale of disgust, I think is the best way to say it, here at Chalk in Chisholm Creek.
Well, and just to hold out just a little bit of hope, we've seen situations where teams will draft a guy for another team knowing that there's a trade involved. So maybe that this is a case where Oklahoma City wants Jalen Suggs and Orlando's going to take whoever Oklahoma City drafts. So it might be a case like that, but if not, Orlando's getting a really, really talented player, a leader, a big shot maker, like as we've seen in the tournament.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs brings a lot to the table, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They now have 3 point guards unless a move is made.
Yeah.
So I think this is the second straight draft that they've drafted a point guard. So I think, like we're saying, Jalen Suggs is a guy that you can't really miss on. In terms of fit, who knows, but he is the best available guy right now. So, Orlando definitely.
I had him number 2 on my big board going into this draft. I had Cade Cunningham 1, Jalen Suggs 2, and then, again, a lot of that is because he plays with the ball in his hand 90% of the time. This in a way feels like the Devin Booker situation years ago,
right,
when you saw Devin Booker slipping and all of a sudden you're thinking Devin Booker on the Thunder would be the greatest fit of all time. And we started this broadcast, and I said, tonight NBA dreams are going to come true. We just saw Jalen Suggs smiling ear to ear, extremely happy about being selected. And at the same time, I said at the beginning of this, and potentially NBA franchise fortunes can sway one way or the other. If you're Oklahoma City, to miss out on Jalen Suggs, man, I think what a miss if they weren't able to get a deal done.
Yeah, it is a miss because you're one pick away, man, from getting a real franchise changer. And like it said on the graphic, that he is a winning player. He is a winning player. He brings a winning mentality to these teams. And, Orlando needs a guy like that, but so as does Oklahoma City. So, now at this point, it'll be interesting to see what Oklahoma City does. I don't think anyone thought that we would get to this point. The number 6 pick with nothing happening. So, maybe there is something that's happened behind the scenes, but I guess we'll see what happens.
The Thunder have 3.5 minutes to make their selection. How crazy would it be to see Oklahoma City move out of this pick and move down? I think that would be just complete insanity. I will say this, and we talked about this when we were here for the NBA Draft Lottery, and how big a night it was because, potentially that night also was one of those things that, depending which way the thing landed, it potentially changes your fortunes. Oklahoma City was really unlucky to land number 6 because, again, when you look at the top 4 players in this draft, it was not a guarantee, and I heard so many people just saying, Oklahoma City can move up in this draft. It's not a problem. They have all the assets in the world. They can easily move up in this draft. Well, you know what? As of right now, we haven't seen it yet. I'm not saying it can't happen, but you and I were both saying back on lottery night, it's not as simple as that. We're talking about a bunch of bad teams that all want difference makers. And the Thunder, yes, they have a ton of draft assets. They have a ton of draft capital, but there's no guarantee that a lot of those picks are going to become top 4 picks to take the Jalen Suggs and the Jalen Greens. And if you're already in that situation to take a Cade Cunningham number 1, why would you trade out of it and cross your fingers and say, I'm going to get a couple picks and I hope those picks land where I'm at right now? It just doesn't make any sense. So I was always hopeful that the Thunder could move up, but I was very cautious about whether that was going to be able to happen. That's why these picks are so valuable.
Right, and we knew that this was a top 4 draft even before the draft lottery happened. And when OKC ended up with 6, you start to think like, okay, you got like you were saying, the tiers. If you're one of these top 4 or 5 teams, and then you look at 6, potentially what could come out of it, I'm not trading out of my spot just to get number 6 and some future assets. When I see the Cade Cunninghams, the Evan Mobleys, I see their potential. I'm not trading out of that just to go to 6.
All right, I just saw the spoiler from Shams as the Thunder are a minute and 15 seconds away from making the selection. I just saw the spoiler on Twitter. I'm going to record this because I think there are going to be a lot of shocked people in this building momentarily. I
don't know this pick, by the way, so I'm
Will
not even
does not know. So Will's going to have a little bit of a reaction as well to what the Thunder are going to do here. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. I'm getting the camera ready. I'm recording chalk because I think there are going to be a lot of really confused people in this building in a matter of moments.
Are we bringing out the torches or?
We'll talk about it in a moment.
Oh man!
Come on, Adam Silver, get to the podium. I don't want to spoil this thing for anybody that's watching along with us, that's watching the draft and listening to us at the same time. I'm not going to do that tonight, guys. So
I'm very curious now.
Unless it's a situation where we're trying to make a trade clear exactly what has happened. I think Aaron just saw it. Okay. Aaron Davis just saw it as well, and
his face wasn't good.
His face was not good. So I'm
okay. Just to be throw out some positivity, maybe this is a time where the Raptors or the Magic and the Thunder are making a trade, and this is the guy that the Magic wanted.
It could be. You know what? That could be the situation. I mean, we just talked about that. Sometimes these teams make picks for the other team, and here we go. Adam Silver's at the podium. Will Brewer, what are the Oklahoma City Thunder doing? Josh Giddey, a guard that doesn't shoot the ball? I mean, I guess that is on point for Sam Presti. An international player that doesn't shoot the basketball.
Oh, man.
Will, give me something here, man. I don't understand this pick at all. This is, look, if I'm going to throw out the positives, he has terrific court vision. He has a terrific handle. He's a guy that can play the true point guard role, but he's not dynamic offensively. He is not dynamic athletically, and he is not a threat to shoot the basketball from beyond the arc.
Oh, man. I wasn't expecting to see Josh Giddey for another 5, 6, 7 picks, but, I mean, he's 6'8", and he knows how to pass the ball. He's been playing professionally since he was I believe 16 or 17. I'm very surprised at the pick. I'm kind of at a loss for words because I don't know. I mean, he's a point guard. He'll be able to run the show, but. Yeah, and
he's not a threat to shoot the ball.
Yeah, he's not.
They're showing a picture of Ben Simmons right now, and I think that's somewhat of a decent comp, but Ben Simmons, at least athletically, is explosive, whereas right. I don't see it with this guy. Like, I think he does have high basketball IQ. Like yes, I said, the court vision, like you can tell, like he sees the floor really well, and he sees plays developing really well. And I like that part of his game, but like, do I like that part of his game so much that I'm picking him number 6 in the NBA draft? Like, there are some pretty glaring deficiencies, in my opinion, on this guy.
Yeah, like you said, Ben Simmons doesn't shoot the ball, but at least he brings a very high level of defense and his ability just to be explosive. But yeah, you don't really see that with Josh Giddey. You definitely don't really see any type of high-level defense, but I mean, I guess just that high-level basketball IQ, what he brings to the table, and I mean, I guess you compare him with Shea in the backcourt.
I rated Josh Giddey as the number 13 player in this draft today when I went through my lottery big board.
Yeah, I think I had him at 11 or 12,
yeah.
But yeah.
Certainly not in the top 10.
And no.
Will, to be honest with you, there wasn't even top 10 consideration from me.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm so shocked at this pick. I definitely thought that it was going to be Kuminga or Boat Knight, one of those guys, but I definitely wasn't expecting Giddey, man. It's pretty shocking.
Here's the part that also makes this pick extremely disappointing. To go from pick 5 and crossing your fingers that you're going to land Jalen Suggs to getting Josh Giddey with the next pick feels like a punch to the face. Yeah. I mean, if Jalen Suggs were gone and then Scotty Barnes goes 5, it's not as bad to take Josh Giddey, but like to go from, hey, we may hit a home run if Jalen Suggs slips one more spot, to Josh Giddey, a guy that doesn't shoot the ball well in a league that you really need to shoot the ball well.
Now, when you were telling me that people were going to be confused, I was really thinking about the Davion Mitchells of the world. You know, like maybe they picked him, but we're talking about a guy who is out of the top 10 and on a lot of big boards. Not just ours. On a lot of big boards, he was out of the top 10. I believe that there definitely are better players and better fits for the Thunder, but obviously they saw something really special in this kid to keep him. So,
you know, it could be a situation where they just desperately tried everything they could to move up and it failed, and they were stuck in a spot where they, just had to make a selection. And man, I don't know. Book Night to me would have made a lot more sense. I like Moses Moody from Arkansas. To me, would have made a lot more sense in that spot. And again, I'm not saying that the guy doesn't have good parts of his game. Like, sometimes when you are disappointed with a pick, it sounds like you're just shitting all over a player.
Right.
And I get that it sounds like we're doing that, but in the top 10 of the NBA draft, to take a guy that is a perimeter player, but not a threat to score from the perimeter. Again, if we're talking about 20 years ago, it's a different story. But in today's NBA, to have that kind of it's Ben Simmons, it's Russell Westbrook. There's a number of those guys, and we just see what a detriment they can be when it really matters. And I don't get it, man.
It's good. I mean, you could just tell by what kind of player he is how these NBA teams are going to defend him. They know he's going to be looking to play make. They know he's going to be looking to get into the paint. So just kind of build a wall, pack the paint. Really force Shea to have to make these decisions, because I mean, Giddey's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, but if the defenses aren't even guarding him, I mean, what is he going to give you? Is he going to take it and make the outside shots?
Yes. I had heard the comp on Giddey was LaMelo Ball, but I don't even feel like I guess I see it in the sense that he's a long ball handler that doesn't use a lot of explosiveness. LaMelo's not necessarily a great shooter either, but I feel like there's LaMelo plays the game at least with a certain level of physicality against NBA players that he doesn't fall short in that department, and that's I think a massive difference with this guy trying to do those same things at the NBA level.
Yeah, it's a huge difference from overseas to the NBA level, and LaMelo had a little bit of an adjustment period, but once he got the swing of NBA basketball, he really took off.
All right, so the Golden State Warriors make their selection at number 7, Will. There was also a lot of speculation that Golden State could potentially trade out of this pick. The pick is Jonathan Kuminga, forward, G League player, just like Jalen Green. This is a guy that I don't feel like has a lot of polish at all. I think he's extremely raw. I think there's a lot of upside if you're able to, if you're able to turn that light bulb in his head on. I think there is massive upside here. He's also a guy that I had closer to 10 in my rankings just because I think there are questions. But, I mean, there's no doubt that there is massive upside with this guy compared to some of the other guys that we're going to see drafted in the next few picks.
Yeah, and Jonathan Kuminga is a very, very elite athlete. And for him to be as long as he is, he's going to be able to defend multiple positions as well. While he is raw, I think playing in the G League, it's really going to help Kuminga and Green. So I think just that level, I think it's just different from the college level to play in the G League. So I think just having that experience is going to work wonders for him. He scored the ball really well at the G League level. I think he averaged 16 a game. So if he's able to translate that into the NBA, carve out a niche in the NBA, he is raw, like you said, but he has a lot of upside.
Are we making hashtag Giddy Up happen? Do we need to just go all in on hashtag Giddy Up?
I think at this point we're just going to have to. I think at this point this is who the Thunder have selected, and they feel pretty confident in him to pick him over some of these guys, to pick him at 6. So giddy up, man. Thunder they're behind it, so we're going to have to jump on board.
All right, our first prize winner, by the way, for the skateboard, the Kona skateboard tonight is Ben Young. So congratulations to Ben Young. You have won the Kona skateboard. Awesome, awesome prizes. We still have the Kona Grizzly Cooler, which, by the way, I would love to take home.
Right. And
the Magic Johnson signed basketball as the grand prize. So first winner of the night, Ben Young, you have won the Kona skateboard. Wow, Will.
Yeah, I mean...
look, I'll say this about the Kuminga pick. I think it's perfect for Golden State because they don't need him to come in and be the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he can, a lot like Wiseman a year ago, although, we all understand what happened there. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, God willing, comes back, are, the drivers of that car, and Kuminga is going to be asked to just, do some things for that team and not necessarily have to develop rapidly like he might in some other situations. So I honestly don't think there could have been a better fit from Kuminga's standpoint.
Absolutely, because when you're a guy as raw as Kuminga, you want to go to a championship level organization, and Golden State is as good as it gets. And like you said, he's not gonna come in and be asked to be the guy. He can come in and develop slowly, and with a guy as raw as Kuminga, but who also has a lot of talent, it's a perfect situation for him because he can have a slow build, and it's only going to work out for him.
Just gauging by my Twitter timeline at the moment, I have not seen a single Thunder fan that's had anything positive to say about Sam Presti, the number 6 selection, or Josh Giddey.
I mean, like you said before, Sam Presti knows, he's very smart when it comes to this stuff. Maybe he saw something in Josh Giddey that we're just overlooking and that we're completely missing.
Yeah.
But
I think it's fair to say they've obviously seen a significant more amount of Josh Giddey than we have. So we're all willing to admit that. He's not an American player. He didn't play here. We don't have the opportunity to see nearly as much of him as the rest of the guys that are being taken tonight. At the same time, how much more could there be to evaluate? I don't know. The Orlando Magic selecting here. Did we have what happened with this pick? Orlando is selecting Franz Wagner, big man out of Michigan. I actually like this guy's game. He's I think he's a little sneaky good.
Yeah, that's the perfect comparison, just to say that he's sneaky good. He was a leader for Michigan this past season. That took him to the NCAA tournament. He can shoot. I mean, in the tournament, I feel like we didn't really get a good gauge on his game because he didn't really play that well in the tournament. But he's got an NBA body. He's got a lot of size, 6'9", 220. Yeah, I mean, I see. It says on the graphic he's versatile. I didn't really see much of the defensive side, but I really like how he can play inside and out. So, I mean, Orlando saw something special in him.
I think, he obviously has the ability to shoot the ball. When I said sneaky good, I was surprised with how good he was in pick-and-roll situations offensively. I'm with you. I don't know about the defensive side as much, but I would say I do like his footwork. And, again, going back to how good I felt like he was in a lot of those pick-and-roll situations, that's a product of him having some pretty decent footwork. So if you kind of do the simple math, I would say that you have to at least like his upside in that department. Because, there are a lot of big men that are just extremely stiff defensively because they have no footwork whatsoever. And at least from that standpoint, I like what he brings to the table.
Yeah, and the pick and roll is something that's so huge in this game. And I feel like with Wagner, what they could do, I
think we pronounce it Wagner, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like the UFC Brazilians with the R's or H's. Instead of Rodriguez in America, they go Rodriguez. I think it's the same thing with Franz. I think they go Wagner with the W's.
Wagner, okay.
Yeah.
So what I think Orlando can do with him, I think that he could play a little bit of five as a stretch five, while also being able to shoot the three, and if his defense is like that, to be able to guard some of the perimeter players as well. So definitely adding some depth, the Orlando Magic.
The Sacramento Kings are on the clock at number 9. We still have about 7 more picks until Oklahoma City's back on the clock with their 16th selection. Off the Josh Giddey pick, let me just ask you this. Are the Thunder really going to make 3 first-round picks tonight and hold on to all 3 of those guys? Let's also not forget they have those 2 picks at the beginning of the second round as well, which are not guaranteed contracts. And I know that we get to the end of the first round and we're not talking about a bunch of super talented guys, but it is kind of your opportunity to take that lottery shot, right? Like hope that you just hit a home run on a long shot. The problem is when you're picking 28, you're obligated to that guy for the next 4 seasons, whereas when you're picking 32nd, you can cut that guy if at any point when you feel like, hey, this isn't working out. It's not a guaranteed contract. So I do feel like the Thunder are going to want to take some long shots with those 2 picks, or look, there might be a player that slides to that point that we're all wowed by, but I don't know what are they going to hold on to these other 2 first-round picks?
I mean, that's what it's looking like to me. I think if we were going to see anything with those later picks with 16 and 18, I think it was going to be packaged with 6 for something else. But I think now everyone's kind of standing pat and making trades or making picks. So I think the Thunder are going to keep it. I tend to think though, with 16, Giddey might have dropped to 16. Like maybe they could have kept picked someone else and still got Giddey at
Possibly,
16.
Yeah. I did see a lot of mock drafts that kind of had him in that 9, 10, 11, 12 range.
Or if they wanted him that much,
yeah.
Package those 2 picks, 16 and 18, to move up and to like 12 or something to get him. But Giddey at 6, man, it's man.
By the way, I do have a quote from Giddey, who says, "Oklahoma City is actually one of my favorite teams, so to be taken by them is a dream come true."
Well, I'm not sure that a lot of Thunder fans will agree about the dream come true part, but yeah, I mean, we're throwing out jokes and everything, but congratulations to Josh Giddey on getting selected for sure. It's his dream. He's putting everything on the table, coming to America to play the game of basketball, and props to him. So he's been playing since he's 17, and now he's realizing his NBA dream.
Yeah, and look, I mean, at the end of the day, above and beyond everything else, like 60 guys are going to have their name called, and 60 guys are going to live their childhood dream of being selected in the NBA draft. And more than anything else, that's what it's all about. And, again, it's a night of celebration for all these guys. And, like I said at the beginning, for a few lucky franchises, it potentially swings the fortunes one way or the other. And at least as of right now, it's not feeling like Oklahoma City's done that in the positive direction.
Yeah, because when you think about the small market teams, you see what Milwaukee did, and you see how they built it. They built around Giannis. They did it the right way, and you tend to think like Oklahoma City, this is their chance. And so now you're like, is Josh Giddey that guy that's going to take the Thunder over the top? So a lot of questions.
By the way, I know this is a basketball show, but there is monstrous MLB news. The Washington Nationals are trading All-Stars Max Scherzer and Trey Turner to the defending champion LA Dodgers. So Max Scherzer joining that Dodgers rotation. Trey Turner, one of the best shortstops in baseball, also going to the Dodgers. So just some breaking news to catch you guys up on from that department. But we have a selection, Will. The Sacramento Kings take Davion Mitchell, guard out of Baylor. I love watching this kid play. Two things that I really love about him. Number one, he has elite burst when getting separation to either take that step-back jumper or to get to the basket. I mean, his burst is, dare I say, Iverson-esque. I mean, that's the kind. It's just 0 to 100, and he's either by you and getting a layup, or he's rocked you one way and he's gone back the other way and he's shooting a fadeaway. And secondly, tenacious defender. I love the fact that for as good and skilled as he is offensively, that it doesn't impact anything on the other end. He's still a dog defensively. Baylor wins the national championship, and he was a really big part of it.
When you think of a guy like Davion Mitchell, dog is a perfect term for him. Throughout that tournament, Baylor really took it to a lot of these teams defensively, and he was the catalyst of it, picking up guys full court, but also still being able to hit big shots on the other end. He's an elite athlete, and he's going to bring a lot of toughness and look at his defense.
They're showing clips of him locking up Cade Cunningham, the #1 pick in this draft.
And he accepts these challenges. He never backs down from it. Like Davion Mitchell is an elite prospect. He's going to be special in this league.
I liked him as a top 10 pick, not because I think he's going to be a star, or look, maybe he's never even a starting point guard. But Davion Mitchell's going to play a decade in this league.
Yeah, absolutely.
He will be on an NBA, barring injury, Davion Mitchell's going to play for 10-plus years in this league because he handles the ball. He's so quick that he will be a problem defensively, and he defends.
Yeah, and I think that he's such a special talent that he doesn't even have to be the guy that runs point guard. He can play off the ball, still bring you a lot of defensive tenacity while being able to shoot the ball at a high level. So there's a lot that you can do with a guy like Davion Mitchell. He's going to Sacramento, and you got a guy like De'Aaron Fox who's there. You got Buddy Hield there. You got Halliburton who's there. So there's a lot of different things that you can do when you add Davion Mitchell to that mix. He brings a defensive toughness to that team that team really lacks. So this is a perfect pick for the Sacramento Kings.
Davion Mitchell, guard, Baylor is the pick to the Sacramento Kings at number 9. All right, Will, we have a trade here. This happened a few days ago. Fan favorite in OKC, Steven Adams, was involved in a trade along with Eric Bledsoe and the number 10 and 40th pick overall, plus a protected 2022 first-round selection to the Grizzlies. The Pelicans receive Jonas Valanciunas and the 17th and 51st overall picks in this draft. So Steven Adams, I tweeted this the other day. Steven Adams is the most Memphis Grizzlies player on the Memphis Grizzlies roster, and he's not even played a game. He fits what the Memphis Grizzlies are, that grit and grind persona, maybe better than anybody in the NBA. But that aside, they make this move, and now it's the number 10 pick in the draft.
Yes. I mean, Steven Adams in Memphis, just that style, that's like a match made in heaven. Steven Adams, I mean, the way he sets screens is going to be great for a guy like Ja Morant to free him up. On the boards, he's a dog on the boards, and he finishes around the rim really well. So very, very good for Memphis to pick up a guy like Steven Adams. I don't think they're going to pick Bledsoe or keep Bledsoe. And New Orleans got a very good prospect in Valanciunas.
All right, here we go. The selection is Zaire Williams from Stanford. I told you before we started this, this is a guy I really like. I love the upside. He's what everybody in the NBA is looking for at this point. He's a 6'8 guy, really good handle, shoots the ball well, sees the floor well, good vision. I honestly thought this might be, if Sam Presti was going to surprise us with a player at number 6, I kind of thought this might be the option because you're talking about length, athleticism. He's out of Stanford.
Right.
Like, you know, I think people just associate Stanford with smart basketball players, but I do like this kid a lot. I think he has a lot of upside.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised that he was as low as he was on some of the big boards. Like you said, he's a very, very skilled scorer. He can shoot the ball, and he's long at 6'8", 6'9". I mean, he's kind of slim, but I think as the years pile on, he'll be able to add some NBA size. And he's an athlete, but at the same time, he brings a lot of skill to the table. So Zaire Williams, he's going to be a very, very interesting prospect in the NBA, and he's going to New Orleans, where I think he'll be able to grow.
Or Memphis, right? Going to Memphis. This is New Orleans traded the pick to Memphis, but again, this is why I hate this so much, because there's so much confusion on draft night because they don't actually make the trade can't become official yet, so they have to show the old team's logo as the team that's selecting him, and it becomes a confusing mess. And just wait till they start doing the 3-team trades where you literally have no idea who is taking who. But yeah, he is headed to the Memphis Grizzlies, and I like the fit there.
And he's taking the picture in the Pelicans hat.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there you go. All right, the Hornets are on the clock with pick number 11 in this first round draft. Will, we will let you take a quick timeout. Kind of gather your thoughts, go purchase your Josh Giddey Thunder jersey, and we'll hear Aaron Davis' thoughts on what happened with Oklahoma City and this number 6 pick. Once again, Colby Daniels, Will Brewer, and Aaron Davis here at Chalk in Chisholm Creek. It is draft night. Shout out to Kona Brewing, by the way, as the Kona girls have been there. They've been passing out Kona beers. We have beer specials from Kona. Every Kona purchase tonight gets you also an extra entry into our big giveaway. We still have to give away the Kona Grizzly Cooler. We still have to give away the Magic Johnson autographed basketball. It's the NBA draft, and we're giving away a signed basketball of one of the greatest number 1 overall selections in NBA history, the number 1 pick in the 1979 draft. So good stuff. Aaron Davis, I'm ready to hear you yell about the number 6 pick. So I was setting the stage. I accidentally, I don't like to see the spoilers, but I accidentally saw the spoiler with what selection Oklahoma City was making at number 6, and I was just ready to watch everybody else's reaction when they actually announced it in the broadcast. I think Aaron did the same thing and accidentally saw the spoiler pick on Twitter as well before it was announced. And Aaron, your reaction was what the heck?
Yeah. Well, first off, I've been on Twitter the whole draft, and that's the only one that's gotten spoiled for me so far. Was the Josh? I can't even think of his name right now.
Josh Giddey.
Josh Giddey.
Just remember hashtag Giddy up.
There you go.
Hashtag Giddy up.
Yeah, I'm not super giddy about the pick necessarily, but look, it's kind of a double-edged sword because he's not necessarily a guy that any of us were familiar with. Because he's 18 out of Australia. He played in Australia last year, right? In the Australian League, yeah. So, no, none of us were really familiar with him. We haven't really watched a lot of actual game footage of him. It's been I try to YouTube him after the pick, and it's just a lot of highlight stuff. But just based on what you read on the scouting report, I mean, okay, so let's say that it's Giddey and Shea is the backcourt that they're looking at for the next 3 to 4 years. Okay, well, you're not going to take the ball to Shea's hand. That would be stupid. He's the best player on the floor for the Thunder. So you're going to have an off-ball guard whose best skill set is his passing.
Yes. So, maybe that's the writing on the wall that Shea potentially is involved in a trade at some point. There were rumors about that for the last week. Look, I would say this. It's fair to say that none of us have had nearly as much exposure to Josh Giddey as we have to anybody else that's been selected to this point. At the same time, it's also fair to say, like, the knocks on this guy are athleticism, explosiveness, and ability to shoot the basketball.
Which, one of those is a given if the Thunder are drafting a player. We know they're not getting a guy that can shoot the ball. So, but, yeah, the explosiveness and the athleticism, I don't know. Like, I'm a little flabbergasted by the pick, honestly. Like, I knew he was in that lottery range for a lot of mock drafts.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just love his IQ and his floor vision and his ability to, kind of make the guys around him better. But how do you make the guys around you better when you're not going to have the ball in your hands most of the time when you're on the floor?
Yeah. And I think there's also the part of this where if you're a Thunder fan, and look, I'm a big Jalen Suggs fan. So, like, there was kind of the situation where Orlando takes Scotty Barnes, the Thunder are one pick from being on the clock, and Jalen Suggs is still available, and you start to think, like, what if they move up a pick? What if he slips another pick? Like, Jalen Suggs could be a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and to go from that to a pick later, it's Josh Giddey, is a massive swing as far as the emotional reaction for a Thunder fan.
So, first off, just from, Suggs being at 5, are you going to tell me that they couldn't put a package together to get that pick from Orlando? I mean, Orlando already has Cole Anthony. And, look, Markelle Fultz is what he is kind of at this point. He's progressed somewhat nicely since he's moved to Orlando, but, like, he's not the high ceiling guy that we thought he was coming out of that draft.
You're not passing on a franchise point guard for the sake of Markelle Fultz, is the thing, yeah.
But you're going to tell me they couldn't put together an enticing package to get up to 5? And maybe, I'm surely they called, because I can't imagine that they sat there looking at the 6th pick, knowing that Suggs was at 5, and they didn't try to make a move. I'm honestly surprised that Toronto didn't trade out of 4. To go with the kid,
Scotty Barnes.
There's been so many names thrown out at me tonight. Scotty Barnes,
Yeah.
Who we talked about before the show is kind of like he's kind of like a glue guy. He's kind of like a Draymond Green guy who's just kind of going to be there to make high IQ plays and help a good team be better, which is what Toronto needs. But they could find those in a lot of avenues. But it just sucks though to be kind of that close to Jalen Suggs without having to move out of 6, because you watch Jalen Suggs play and he's 18 years old, but I don't look at him as an 18-year-old. Like, I watch him play at Gonzaga, and he looks like he's 25 years old. Looks like he's, like, close to his prime as far as, like, his IQ and his abilities on the floor. So, Orlando, they nailed it right there with that Suggs pick. They got lucky, too, obviously. But it would have.
I thought he was the second best player in this draft. I told Will that earlier. Like, when I put my big board together, it was Cade 1. It was Jalen Suggs 2. Jalen Suggs is not going to be a bad basketball player.
No.
Now, we can all have the conversation about how good he is and the ceiling, and that's the separation, I think, between Cade and Suggs is Cade's ceiling, if everything goes in his favor, is, league MVP potentially. I don't necessarily see league MVP with Jalen Suggs, but I see, potentially all-star caliber player. He does everything well, and to go from a guy that you literally can't find weaknesses to a guy that has some pretty glaring weaknesses,
right?
Is also a big issue.
And like I said 5 times in the 5 minutes I've been on here, his strengths aren't something you can really utilize with Shea on the team.
Yeah.
I guess Giddey could be like the 6th man and just kind of run the point with that second unit, but they don't really have guys around him that he could really facilitate to right now.
Yeah.
What's he going to do? Throw passes at Darius Baisley? Mike Muscala?
Yeah. The Charlotte Hornets, picking at number 11, have made their selection. Aaron, they take James Bouknight, the guard out of UConn, and for the last week, pretty much every NBA mind that I've heard talk about the draft has associated James Bouknight and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think Thunder fans over the last week had kind of grown comfortable to this guy potentially being the pick at 6 if the Thunder didn't make a move. I think you could make the argument he's the best pure scorer in this draft. To see him matched with LaMelo in Charlotte is a really interesting dynamic.
You know, it's interesting that Charlotte ends up with this pick. UConn guard, right? Let me know. Tell me if this reminds you of anybody. UConn guard, super athletic, great finisher, great shooter inside the three-point line, athletic. He's a little bit taller than the first iteration of this guy, but great. I mean, does it remind you of anybody?
Spot on.
Yeah, he's a
current Oklahoma City Thunder guard, Kemba Walker.
And look, if Bouknight can develop his three-point shot like Kemba did, because Kemba coming out of the draft, he never shot threes at UConn.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to the basket every time, or maybe pull up from 18 feet. But Kemba obviously developed to be a good three-point shooter and an all-around offensive guard. So I mean, if Bouknight can be that, and pair that with LaMelo, like Charlotte's. I mean, it only took Michael 20 years, but he's finally putting together a decent team in Charlotte, and they're fun to watch. I mean, last year they were one of my League Pass teams whenever I would actually tune into League Pass because, I mean, just when you kind of look what they've got, Terry Rozier, LaMelo, now Bouknight, like they've got some pieces around there. And I don't know how long Rozier is going to end up being there long term, but I mean, they've got pieces for sure.
I asked Will this earlier. Giddey's the pick at 6. Are the Thunder going to make both of those other 2 first-round selections?
Well, with Bouknight being off the board, I think so. I think if somebody like Jalen Johnson's still there at 16, I think you kind of just wait it out. Unless you're worried he's going to go before 16, then I would probably give up those 2 picks and move up to like, hell, 12. If you think San Antonio might take Jalen Johnson, then I'd move up to 12 and take him. I mean, I know you like him. I know you're a fan of him. But
I like Jalen Johnson a lot. I like Moses Moody from Arkansas.
Yeah, great shooter.
Again, he's a guy that maybe isn't an all-star, but he's a guy that plays good minutes for you and is going to be one of your best 5 players, and he's going to do a lot for you. I like Chris Duarte out of Oregon quite a bit.
Yeah. He's actually not a great shooter. He's a great scorer, though.
Great scorer, great defender, and just plays his ass off. I mean, that's the one thing that really stands out to me is he plays harder than everybody on the court around him. Those are 2 guys, Jalen Johnson.
The problem with Moody and the kid out of Oregon, though, is they're kind of old. I mean, you're taking guys that are, 23?
Moody's a freshman, but yes, the Oregon kid, Duarte is like 24, I think.
Yeah, okay, so, Moody was a freshman.
Yeah, Moody's a freshman. Moody, to me, is, like, right now, I think Moody's the best player available. Jalen Johnson's probably next, and then Duarte.
Kai Jones do anything for you?
No.
I mean, I was looking at Kai's stat line earlier, and obviously the skill set's there with him, like a big dude that's athletic that can shoot and space the floor and is a pretty decent defender, but like, I mean, he played 20 minutes a game at Texas last year.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be a big red flag for a lot of teams, which,
right.
I mean, that's why he's falling, obviously. But
I mean, Jericho Sims played better than he did most of the season, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, Kai really flashed in that in the Big 12 championship game, and you saw what you could get without him, but I mean, it's not like a lot of teams are looking at, stretch bigs that defend well and saying, I don't know, we probably have enough of those. So,
what do you think about Keon Johnson?
Tennessee kid?
Yeah. Crazy athletic.
Crazy. I mean, he might be the most athletic guy in this draft. I mean, Cade obviously is a freak just because of his size and, like, what he could do. But just from, like, a pure athletic standpoint, like, Jalen Green and Keon Johnson probably the 2 guys at the top.
Yeah.
As far as, just wow factor. But, I mean, his games were pretty raw. I mean, he's not a great shooter.
Are you prepared for Corey Kispert to be the selection at 16? That way you draft the guy that doesn't shoot the ball well and passes for the guy that doesn't handle the ball well but shoots well.
I mean,
you get a 2 for 1. If you combine Kispert and Giddey,
that's a good player.
Into one player, it might be the best player in the draft.
I mean, have the Thunder ever drafted a shooter? Ever? Have they ever went into the first round?
Considering the Thunder didn't actually draft Kevin Durant. Seattle did.
Yeah, but he's not a shooter. Kevin Durant was a scorer.
Yeah, but he shoots the ball pretty damn well.
Well, yeah, but I mean, okay, but you'd have to be stupid to pass on Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
So
well, that's what I'm saying. And it wasn't even the Thunder; it was Seattle.
I'm saying, but it was Presti still. I mean, he was there. But have they ever drafted like all those like mid-lottery, into lottery, like early, like late teens, early 20s picks they've had? Have they ever drafted a guy that was a shooter? I guess Terrence Ferguson was supposed to be a 3.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be a shooter, but that didn't obviously work out.
He was supposed to be a 3-and-D guy. But, yeah, I mean, Reggie Jackson was kind of viewed as a combo guard, but I kind of felt like he was more of a bulk scorer than...
Yeah, and his shooting has gotten better.
Yeah,
it was not what it was when he was in OKC at this point.
But no, I think the answer is no.
So, no, I don't think they're going to draft Corey Kispert.
Well, I mean, we've known the Thunder to be the team that always drafts long, athletic guys, and they drafted a really unathletic guy.
Over a raw, super long, athletic guy in Kuminga who went 7.
So,
they could have had an NBA champion at 7 because Kuminga's going to win a title this year.
So maybe it is Corey Kispert. Yeah, I don't know. What makes sense to you? I mean, to try and pair with this roster and Josh Giddey, based on, if you're going need, what makes sense to you? Joshua Primo. Wow.
Great name, by the way. Primo name. As far as what makes sense to me, I mean, you need a big. You traded Moses Brown to Boston. Obviously, Steven Adams isn't coming back to Oklahoma City at this point unless Memphis decides to trade him in a couple of months, which is highly unlikely. I wouldn't say highly unlikely, but I think it's unlikely that Oklahoma City brings him back. But I think you need a center. You need a big. You need somebody that can protect the paint and rebound right now on this team.
Yeah.
I know Jalen Johnson isn't that guy because he's kind of like that point forward role, but I think that Jalen Johnson's another guy that you could bring in because they don't have – you can never have too many ball handlers. And I know they just drafted Giddey, but someone that's dynamic. And Jalen Johnson, I think he has a pretty high ceiling. I don't know where his floor's at. His floor's probably not super high or as high as you would like it to be, but –
I agree with that. And part of it is, there's a lot of people are down on him because of – leaving Duke, and there's been a lot of questions about, the personality traits. And look, I have a hard time going down those avenues because we literally know nothing about that. Like, I'm strictly evaluating him from the basketball perspective. But, like, I think the guy, he's 6'8", good athlete. I think he could be more explosive than he shows. I think he tries way too hard to play big and down on the block. I think he's a 3 in the NBA. He's not playing the 4. But I like the upside there. But you're right. I think he probably is a guy that also has a lower floor than some of the other guys.
Which, when the Thunder, there's no reason to draft high floor, low ceiling guys right now. Draft guys that their floor is below the basement. It's 6 feet under the ground, but their ceiling is the Empire State Building. Like, there's no reason to not take a chance on every guy in this draft. I mean, if you want somebody that's a little bit more of a sure thing, maybe a guy like Trey Murphy. I mean, obviously he played at Virginia, so you would have to assume that he could play pretty damn good defense, or, at least reasonably good defense, but he's a good shooter. He's big.
Yeah.
Maybe a guy like that if you're looking just for somebody for Giddey to pass to, and just be a catch and shoot guy. I don't know. There's not really a lot of ways they can go that I say that it's stupid, but, I mean, maybe an off-ball guard that can't shoot is probably not the best route, but who knows? I mean, maybe Giddey can develop into a good shooter. He's only 18.
Who's the next worst shooter in this draft? That might be your perimeter player. That might be the pick. That would really frustrate Thunder fans.
I mean, if you're just talking from the perimeter, I mean, Bouknight's not great, but he's win already, so I guess – I mean, he's a great scorer, obviously, but from shooting from 3, he's not – he leaves a little bit there to be desired. I don't know. I just look at what's available in the rest of this draft. It's a lot of guards, and I don't know if you draft another guard where he fits in right now.
If you're drafting – there are a couple players that are still available right now that I think if you're at 16, needs out the window, and you take Moses Moody or you take Jalen Johnson or you take Chris Duarte – a guy like that. But if it gets to the point that those guys are gone in a few picks, like, there are a bunch of big guys, and this is the reason why I don't, there are so many big guys in the NBA draft that, like, it doesn't make any sense to take them high. Look at like the top 10 to 15 big guys in the NBA right now that play the center position, and maybe a couple of them were top 10 picks. Like, it's just one of those positions where I think it's become such a gamble on which ones are going to hit. They all play off the ball, so you don't know how they're going to integrate into anybody's offense.
Let Speaking of big guys, so the last big guy that won, obviously, well, it depends on where I guess Zion technically is a big guy, but he's an anomaly. Like, that dude was going number one since he was a freshman in high school.
Right.
DeAndre Ayton was the number one pick as a big. Do you think Phoenix is a better team with DeAndre Ayton or Ja Morant? Obviously, Chris Paul doesn't go to Phoenix, but if it's Ja Morant and Devin Booker, are they a better team than what Phoenix was this past year?
Probably not. But, like, I think because I think Ayton complements Booker better than Ja Morant would. But Ja Morant's a better player. Like,
100%.
I don't think that's even close.
It's just, I mean, like you said, it's hard to be a better player in today's NBA when you don't have the ball in your hand a bunch. And that's why Jokic won the MVP, because he's their point guard, basically. The offense flows through him completely. And in Philadelphia, the same thing. They have this $100 million point guard, so to speak, but the offense still runs through Joel Embiid. And I mean, the Thunder, there's no big in this draft that you're going to run an offense through.
Yeah.
I mean, at 18 it would be a reach, but I think, like, as far as, like, needs for the Thunder, when I look at their roster, like, they need a guy like Day'Ron Sharpe, the big dude out of North Carolina. Like, they need a big body down in the paint, because they do
need a big body. But my point is, like, I feel like every year in the draft there are like 10 of those guys where there's just not a lot of separation, and like I'm sure at some point they need to do that, but I don't think it's one of those things where like they just need to draft that at 16 because it's their need.
Right, and there's no reason. I mean, it's very conceivable that Day'Ron Sharpe could be there at 35.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So, reaching on him there is definitely not worth it. Were you disappointed that they traded Moses Brown?
No. I take it you were?
I mean, it's easy to find a Moses Brown, but they don't have a Moses Brown. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
They traded a guy that was a great rebounder and a pretty decent rim protector, and they don't really have the answer yet. Well, there goes Chris Duarte.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair, but I mean, if a team wants him to get a deal done, he's not so good that I don't feel like I can't find that somewhere. And again, they have so many picks tonight. Like,
I mean,
whether it's Kai Jones or somebody, they're gonna find a big body somewhere tonight.
Free agency too. I mean, they've got to hit the salary floor. Like, they've got to hit the floor. They need to sign somebody. But
every year there are like more than serviceable big guys on the trash heap that are just looking for a home. Every year.
Well, yeah, especially after all the Ian Mahimi guys got paid in 2016. Now they're just struggling to find something like a minimum salary at this point. So yeah, you'll find a big body that can rebound. I think you just go best available at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, even the good teams really in the NBA draft, there's no positions anymore, so every team should draft best available.
I like this Chris Duarte kid out of Oregon. He just I like guys that just give me the impression they will run over anybody in their path to win the game.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, he's a little bit older, but I mean,
he's older, but he's a dog.
Yeah. And Indy's an interesting team because you look at the Pacers roster, and I think it's a decent roster. I think that it's a roster that Rick Carlisle can win with. Like, Sabonis is an all-star. I would say he's probably one of the 3 to 5 best power forwards in the league. I know I just said it's positionalist, but I mean he's pretty locked into playing that traditional 4 role. But Malcolm Brogdon's still there. Karis LeVert, they might make some trades. Like, Miles Turner might be gone, but like, they've got a pretty decent roster, and they add this kid out of Oregon. We just talked about it.
Chris Duarte.
Duarte's name just keeps slipping my mind.
He'll play for them
for sure. Yeah, he'll play minutes.
And contribute.
Yeah, especially if Karis LeVert's dealt with injury issues. Obviously, play off guard, shoot the ball a little bit, aggressive. It's a good pick though. I like it. Golden State already with another pick. We're in a world where Golden State has 2 picks in this draft before Oklahoma City has 2 picks.
Yeah. Golden State at number 7 took Jonathan Kuminga, which, look, I thought from Kuminga's standpoint, Golden State was probably about the best possible scenario.
Yeah, I mean,
for a
there's
guy that's
pressure.
really raw
Yep.
and needs a lot of development.
And, I mean, look, I know a lot of people don't like Draymond Green, but Draymond Green's probably one of the best guys in the NBA to learn under. If you're just a raw rookie that needs to develop his game and learn how to be an NBA player. Because, I mean, Draymond's not in the NBA because he does anything exceptionally good. I mean, he's a great defender, obviously, but, like, he's just a high IQ guy that has developed into a really good basketball player. But a little disappointed. Golden State doesn't have Dame Lillard right now, but whatever.
You want to see Lillard and
Steph? Who doesn't want to see that?
Yeah.
By the way, I
don't want to see it in the NBA, but, like, I was living for it in last year's All-Star game when they were on the same team, just taking turns, heaving it from 45 feet.
I don't think Dame going to the Golden State makes them any more of a title contender than what they already are. So why not just have a season of them two going absolutely insane? By the way, I saw a tweet the other day. Steph Curry is older than Derrick Rose right now. My mind was absolutely blown when I heard that. Steph's a year older than Derrick Rose.
Yeah, that's shocking to me.
Yeah, he's 33. Steph's 33 years old right now. And it feels like he's been in the league forever because he's been in the league for 12 years, but I feel like Derrick Rose has been in the league for 20 years.
Good Lord. Okay, here we go. So, Oklahoma City, their last 3 first-round picks have been Poku, Teo Maledon, and now Josh Giddey. So they've gone the international route 3 straight times. So if that continues,
Who are we
pick
looking
is
the Turkey kid.
I would say Garuba, the big guy, power forward out of Spain, Usman Garuba. All right, here we go. Golden State Warriors making their second selection tonight. Moses Moody, what
Great
a
pick.
steal for Golden State at 14.
Just more shooting.
He's going to play and do a lot of the things that they wanted Andrew Wiggins to do.
Yeah. I mean, and look, how's his defense? I know he's a good shooter. How's his defense?
Defender.
He's a good defender.
Yeah.
So you have a second unit Klay Thompson, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Moses Moody a lot. I thought he was one of the best 10 players in this draft. And I think Golden State's getting a steal at 14.
How the hell are we going to let Golden State do everything they did for the first half of this decade, then draft James Wiseman, and then get Moses Moody at 14?
And Kuminga.
Kuminga's a little bit of a, we'll see what happens with him. But
yeah, no, look, I'm not super high on Kuminga, but to be in the situation where you can get Kuminga and develop him, and it's not a rush because if he hits, like, he could be a home run.
Right. But, I mean, Moody's going to fill in.
Moody's going to help them.
Right away.
Yeah.
You think Andrew Wiggins is on their roster at the beginning of the season?
No. I think they're going to.
This doesn't make any sense, right?
Part of it also depends on who wants to trade for him and take him on.
Yeah.
We do this thing where we're like, I don't think they would want him, and ideally they would like to get rid of him, but I mean, it takes somebody else wanting him too. So I don't know.
Would you trade Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan? Well, would you trade Andrew Wiggins for Buddy Hield if you're Golden State?
Yes.
Trying to think of like comparable contracts to Andrew Wiggins. I mean, obviously you could throw Kuminga potentially into a trade with Andrew Wiggins to really incentivize another team.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that for Buddy Hield. I think Buddy Hield is just Andrew Wiggins straight up for Buddy Hield pretty.
I thought Wiggins being in the situation he was in, he was finally going to have an opportunity to flourish, and
he just is what he is.
I think he did have that opportunity to flourish, and it just never really turned out that way. Like, he's just I think the bottom line is he's a guy that has a lot of talent and a lot of athleticism, but he's going to be an inconsistent player. He's going to give you great nights, but he's also going to disappear in really critical times.
The problem with Andrew Wiggins is he's no better today than he was the night he was drafted. Do you watch Andrew Wiggins play now and say he's a much better player than his rookie year?
That's fair.
I'd say, I mean, it's pretty much a lateral line for him. So, yeah, I mean, Golden State's interesting. I mean, we'll see what Klay is after, coming back from the injury. It was an ACL last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he tore the Achilles. No, it was the ACL. Retore it, right?
Retore it,
yeah. So, luckily for Clay, he doesn't dribble the ball or do anything. He doesn't need to really
catch and shoot.
be explosive to
Although
do what he does greatly.
Draymond Green gets a lot of the credit for how good that team is defensively. I think Clay is equally as important to them defensively.
Clay.
So
Draymond isn't the guy that guards their best player, the other team's best player. It's always Clay.
Right.
But Clay being back, that hides Steph, and it helps them out a lot. It does hurt them that if Andrew Wiggins is on the floor with them too, because now you have two bad defenders.
Yeah.
In Steph and Wiggins, but they're going to be good. They made the play-in tournament last year just with Steph going nuclear.
Can we address, as we get ready we still have a few more picks before Oklahoma City picks at 16. Can we talk about all the idiots going back to the draft lottery that were just like, no big deal. It doesn't matter where the Thunder land. They have so many assets. They can just move up to whatever pick they want. Like, there were a bunch of those takes. And look, there were a bunch of those takes from Oklahoma City media members.
Okay, so look, I can see where they're coming from because we live in a world where the team that we cover, our local team, the team that we're used to, that we're around the most, is willing to just trade whatever for a bunch of draft picks.
Yeah.
Other teams aren't necessarily willing to do that. Other teams don't. Draft picks hold a lot of value, but in the NBA, they don't hold the same value as an actual player does. Like an imaginary player.
And a locked pick certainly is in a different stratosphere.
Post-lottery, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, what's the incentive for Houston to trade out of the 2 pick if they really like Jalen Green? Even if Oklahoma City gives him 4 first-round picks, if they think Jalen Green's going to be, an MVP caliber player in 5 years, why would they trade out of that?
And this is a draft where
just to get back into the lottery next year.
Right. Like you may or may not, like all those picks may or may not ever end up in the top 5 again. And this is a draft where you and I talked yesterday or the day before where we felt like there were definitely 4 like top-tier guys in this draft. Why would any one of those 4 teams trade out of that pick for quote-unquote future first-round picks that maybe they're good picks, maybe they're not, maybe they're in the teens, maybe they're at the tail end of the lottery, but there's no guarantee that you're in position like you are currently to land one of the premier players in a draft.
Toronto kind of made sense at it for trading out just because of where their roster's at.
Sure,
and they want to get back into the playoffs and they want to get back to being contenders in the East, but then they pass on Jalen Suggs, and I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But generally speaking, yes, bad teams are going to be at the top of the lottery. And if you're Oklahoma City, you're not going to give up a bunch to get into the 4 or 5 pick. I would have, but I wouldn't have given up a bunch. But I absolutely would have tried to get up into 4 and take Jalen Suggs. I would have given up Kemba Walker.
I would have traded my whole draft to move up one spot to get Jalen Suggs
100%.
versus picking at 6. The whole draft, all 6. What is it? 6 picks?
Yeah, 100%. I would have
every pick.
And then Toronto. They would have. If you're Toronto, how do you pass on that? How do you pass on having 6 picks tonight when you just need like a couple of pieces and you're back in the playoffs and you're back in, I don't know if they're real contenders, but you're back into being a top 5 team in the East? I don't know how you pass on that. And if you're Presti, they must really not have liked Jalen Suggs that much to not throw that offer out at them.
Or, here's the other thing. First-round picks also mean guaranteed contracts. And if you're Toronto, you have a lot of established players. They may not be able to take on 3 first-round picks this year.
Yeah. I honestly,
like there are so many elements to the whole like trading draft pick thing that I think there are a lot of people that just assume like if you throw 4 draft picks at somebody for 1 draft pick, it's going to be a done deal and they're going to jump all over it. But the reality is everybody is fighting to get one of the premier picks in an NBA draft, and once you have that, it's idiotic to trade it for more lottery tickets or chances to get back in the same position you just traded away.
Yeah, well, I mentioned it last week, I think, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Like, that's why Kemba to Toronto made so much sense to me because Kyle Lowry's already said that he wants out. He said it during the season. Kyle Lowry's like 75 years old at this point, and like I don't know how. His butt's got to be 100 inches wide. So like, how much longer can he really play? I don't know what the butt thing had to do with anything. Everybody always makes comments about his big butt.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like he's wearing a diaper.
It does. But anyways, if he's out, his contract's up, and there's no reason to re-sign him to big money. You really are trying to be contenders in the East again. Kemba seems like a perfect fit. And if Oklahoma City's willing to give you Kemba in the 6th so that they can move up to get Jalen Suggs, why? I mean, absolutely. I mean, why would you do that if you're Toronto? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. But hell, maybe Oklahoma City just never called him about it. I don't know.
I don't believe that.
I don't believe either team did call
I would
the
say
other.
this. I would say with 100% certainty, Sam Presti offered something.
Yeah. I mean, if you're saying he had to have called everybody in the top 5, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe not the top 5, but 4.
I would be willing to say Sam Presti, with certainty, Sam Presti made an offer to every team that was picking above him.
Sure. As I think every NBA GM will do.
Right.
And I would imagine that Detroit's taking calls from everybody about that first pick. Even if they have no intention on trading, you still listen. I mean, who doesn't listen to a job offer? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, of course.
Like, you listen. Maybe they'll knock you out of your boots and you got to take the offer. But, I mean, Oklahoma City landed at 6. And
I mean, we've all been talking about the hypothetical thing that was thrown out earlier this week, and it was that the Thunder had offered Shea and the number 6 pick for the number 1 pick. And a lot of Thunder fans were like, there's no way the Thunder would do that. That's a stupid trade. And Detroit would be stupid to turn that down, which I completely disagree with. If you are a team that currently is not any good, whether it's the Thunder or the Rockets or the Pistons, none of those teams are good. If you have the opportunity to get a younger player that has a higher ceiling than the other side of the trade, you always take the younger guy with the higher ceiling if your team stinks.
Well,
it's not even a question.
Yeah, because, and look, in the NBA, the NFL, even in the MLB, like, it's a little bit harder than the MLB, but in the NFL, like, you can flip it around in a year. You could go from being the worst team one year to being a playoff team the next year. It happens all the time. We see it consistently. I mean, Tampa Bay hadn't made the playoffs in 10 years, and then one offseason, they're, Super Bowl champions. Kansas City drafts one player, and they were decent, but they go from being Alex Smith's Chiefs to, Super Bowl contenders year in and year out. Like, it's easy in the NFL. In the NBA, it takes years. Yeah. Some teams never get there. Like, right. I'm convinced Orlando will never be a contender ever again.
Sacramento might not either.
Same. Like, there are just some teams in some markets, especially in today's NBA, where it's players dictate where they go.
Yeah.
They're not going to go play for a Sacramento or Orlando. Like,
right.
I've heard multiple NBA players talk about Orlando being one of their least favorite places to visit, and it's in Florida. Like, that's where Disney World's at. Like, and they hate it. They hate Orlando.
Yep.
And that's why a lot of Thunder fans, and I know that they feel this way, but like, you really need to reiterate how fortunate Thunder fans are that Presti is still in Oklahoma City and didn't bail out after Russell Westbrook got traded and just kind of the rebuild officially started. Because you got to have a front office that's willing to spend money and a GM that's aggressive and willing to make trades if you're a small market team, and Oklahoma City has that right now. But there's a lot of small market teams that don't have that. They're going to suck forever. So you got to build it through the draft and hope you have like a 3-year window where you can be good with your draft picks.
We have movement in the NBA, guys. We have a Woj bomb involving Oklahoma City. The Thunder are trading the 16th pick. Sources tell ESPN.
Okay.
So
we doing more Woj? We got more on that?
That's it. They're not telling us. Shams has also confirmed. Actually, Shams has gone a step further. OKC's trading number 16 to Houston, but they've not given us any information on what is being swapped in Oklahoma City's favor.
Houston has 16 for 23 and 24, maybe.
I don't know.
John Wall to the Thunder.
Maybe the Thunder can end up with 4 first-round picks, all of them being projects, and maybe one of them hits.
Maybe. You think 16 and Kemba Walker for John Wall? Why not? Let's just get every All-Star guard for 2013.
Every former All-Star.
In for like a couple of weeks and see what happens.
Yeah, go through the photo shoot of them wearing the Thunder uniform and let that make the rounds on social media for a couple weeks and then trade them.
Yeah, maybe let a few jerseys get printed and sold. So, because who's going to buy a Darius Baisley jersey? No offense to Darius Baisley, but I'm not going to spend $200 on a Darius Baisley jersey.
Yeah, of course not.
Josh Giddey, though. I mean, he's a first-round pick.
Josh Giddey, though.
He's a lottery top 10 pick.
I mean, if you are buying the Josh Giddey jersey, then you need to customize it to the hashtag Giddy Up.
Hashtag Giddy Up.
Hashtag Giddy Up. So the Oklahoma City Thunder are on the clock, but they are trading this number 16 pick. Houston is sending OKC 2 future first-round picks for number 16. So the Thunder are not making this selection. They are not getting a pick in this draft in return. It is for 2 future first-round selections. And, again, they are going to make this pick, but it is not for the Oklahoma City Thunder. All right, Aaron, before we let you run, and you're going to come back here in a little bit, but since the Thunder have traded 16, I'll ask you about 18. Give me your prediction of who will be taken by OKC with pick number 18.
So I think Houston's going to take Jalen Johnson here. So I think he's probably going to be off the board. I think it's going to be Keon Johnson.
Okay.
I think the athletic kid out of Tennessee. They need somebody that could go get some baskets, and I know that Keon's not necessarily the most polished, player in this draft, but I mean he's super athletic. At least maybe he could get to the free throw line and get to the basket and catch some alley oops from Josh Giddey. I mean, I don't know. I'm honestly a little disappointed they traded out of 16. I don't really. I guess you want to get more future first-round picks, but I mean that just shows you that Oklahoma City doesn't really value anybody that's left in this draft right now at this point.
Yeah.
So
there we go.
Keon Johnson.
OKC trading pick number 16 to the Houston Rockets for 2 future first-round picks. And the Thunder are making this selection at 16, but this is not going to be their player. They will be picking at 18. And Aaron is predicting Keon Johnson will be the selection at 18 for OKC. So here we go. OKC coming up in just a couple more picks as, again, they have traded this pick to the Houston Rockets. Will Brewer is going to join me again in a matter of moments. I think he's really zoned in on the NBA draft right now. But Will Brewer going to join me in a matter of moments. And I said that like 3 times, and you were like so in the zone. It was hilarious. How was that sandwich, by the way? That sandwich looked spectacular.
Oh, yeah, that was amazing. My stomach was over here doing somersaults, so I needed to get something to eat. But I was looking at the proposed trade with Houston, so I was a little like, of course they're going to trade the 16 pick.
Yeah.
So
for 2 future first-round picks. So once again, trading out of picks to get future first-round picks that, they're not going to use to trade into the top 5. So more first-round picks, more draft capital that you're not going to use to get difference makers in the top 5 of the NBA draft.
Man, for the draft lottery to go the way it did, and now for this draft to be going the way it's been going, I'm sure this draft has not gone to what the Thunder fans were expecting, to say the least.
To say the least, yeah. I've not seen a single person on my Twitter timeline say something positive about the Oklahoma City Thunder since before the 5th pick of the NBA draft was made. So I think there was, a lot like the lottery night that we were here. There's this excitement level of like, what if tonight is like, 10 years down the road, we look at tonight as the night that it all changed. This was the turning point where things went in the right direction. And, the Thunder landed 2 top 5 draft picks in the lottery. It didn't go that way. And then tonight, even with having 6, 16, and 18, there's this idea that you have all this draft capital. You've got to make a move. You can't make all these picks and roster all these guys over the next 5, 6, 7 years. Like, you just can't. So at some point, you're going to have to make some trades, and you're going to have to move these picks. And if you're at number 6 and you cannot get into the top 5, what's the point in having them?
Right.
Like, that's the whole point of all these, is so you can move into position when you don't win the lottery to try and get those difference makers. I think if you're a Thunder fan and you're massively disappointed tonight, I think you should be.
Yeah.
This is a massively disappointing night. And Sam Presti's going to say lots of good things about Giddey, and for all we know, Giddey turns into a good player. But I will guarantee you one thing: Sam Presti made offers to move up.
Absolutely.
Sam Presti,
100%.
I promise you, tried to get Orlando to make a trade. Sam Presti tried to get Toronto to make a trade. Sam Presti tried to get every team that was picking above him to make a trade. But like we talked about when we were doing this at the lottery, those are also bad teams.
Right.
And those teams also need difference makers. So just throwing a bunch of future first-round picks at them is not nearly as valuable as having that number 2 overall selection or that number 3 overall selection. So, it's an interesting dynamic because I think they tried, but, I was skeptical as to whether or not it could happen. And a big reason why I was pro Trey Shea to move up in this draft, because I think that's the only way it's going to happen. I don't think you're able to move up just by offering teams future picks that may not even end up in the lottery, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I think now that I've thought about it more, I think trying to throw Shea into the trade offer for number 1, I think that was maybe like a last-ditch effort. I think Sam Presti's normally a guy who has the upper hand, and he'll get trades to where you're like, how did Sam Presti pull that off? And I think now with this draft, the first 4 picks, they're so valuable. The first 5 picks are so valuable that Sam Presti definitely did his due diligence. He definitely tried to he threw everything out there. He threw the kitchen sink. He probably threw in some cash. Whatever the case is, it just didn't happen. And for this was the worst case scenario. This was a possibility. we didn't think that it would get to this point. We definitely thought that Sam Presti would make a move and move up, but Thunder fans definitely expected more. But this was in the realm of possibilities for sure, and it's come to reality. Yeah.
All right. Well, they still have 18. Barring another trade by Sam Presti for future first-round picks. If they're making the pick at 18, based on what's available. There are still some good players on the board. What direction do you think makes sense for OKC next?
Man, it's tough to even say because I was so thrown off by the Giddey pick. Maybe you go at Jalen Jackson, maybe. Jalen Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean. Maybe go Keon Johnson. I mean, who knows?
Right. Either one of those picks I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, either one of those guys. In terms of being the best available, I think those are the 2 best. But, you never know. Maybe they go with another overseas guy.
Well, if they're going to go overseas, Garuba out of Spain makes a ton of sense. Long, athletic, going to be a guy that probably does a lot of the things that Moses Brown did when the Thunder traded him. So Garuba would, like, if I was betting right now and the Thunder do make the pick for themselves, Garuba would be who I would bet they take. But I'm with you. I think when you look at the upside of what Jalen Johnson could be, or the upside of what Keon Johnson could be, based on what you've already taken, that's the route I'm going.
Yeah, that would be the route I go. But in terms of what the Thunder have, they don't really have many big men. They traded Moses Brown.
Yeah.
They still have Tony Bradley, I believe, but I think he might be a free agent. So they might be looking for a big man.
What do you think about Isaiah Jackson out of Kentucky?
I like Isaiah Jackson. I probably wouldn't use my pick number 18 on him because in terms of best available, I really feel like you get a Jalen Johnson, but I wouldn't be opposed to Isaiah Jackson for sure.
Long, athletic shot blocker. I'm not overly impressed with his offensive skills. He's kind of a finisher at the rim offensively. If you want to throw him the ball, he can go get it. But, I'm with you. I think there are still guys that have drastically better skill sets at this point that would be available than to – look, in the NBA draft, we see this all the time. There are big guys are a dime a dozen. Unfortunately, that's not a bad thing, but we've reached this point in basketball where – everybody wants guys that are going to have the ball in their hands, and everybody wants guys that play the perimeter. And the reality is the draft value for a lot of these big guys that aren't Evan Mobley,
right?
Or DeAndre Ayton,
right?
These guys, their value slides. And when you look at like the top 15 centers in the NBA right now, the majority of them are not top 10 picks.
Right.
They're guys that you can find later in the draft, and I would even say in free agency, you're going to be able to, like, there are always quality centers on the trash heap that you can have come play solid minutes for you.
Right.
Because they're not valued the same way as they used to. The league has changed so drastically.
Right. Like a guy like Hassan Whiteside, 7-foot rim protector.
Right.
I mean, just a few years ago, he was an all-star, all this stuff, but now he's barely getting any time in the league. DeAndre Jordan. I mean, he's on the bench. Dwight Howard, Boogie Cousins, all these guys who we're used to seeing being all-stars, they're kind of being fizzled out a little bit. So there's always going to be some really talented centers that you could get for the veteran minimum. And there's just those fair few, like the Jokic's, who are just like exceptions to the rule, if you will. So, like you said, I mean, there's not a lot of centers that you would just look at and be like, okay, I need that guy. Evan Mobley is that exception in this draft.
Yeah. Right now, Mike Schmitz has Keon Johnson and then Jalen Johnson as the best two available players. Trey Murphy from Virginia, and then Usman Garuba, who is my betting favorite to be the pick for OKC at number 18, mostly because raw, athletic, international player. It all kind of adds up for Sam Presti.
Thunder player to the T.
Yeah. All right, we have the 17th. Is this the 17th pick coming in now?
17th.
Trey Murphy, guard out of Virginia, is the selection to. So this is the Memphis is making this pick for the Pelicans in that trade that we discussed earlier. Trey Murphy, Virginia. Thoughts on this guy?
Well, he's a 3-and-D guy. He can shoot the ball really well. I think the Pelicans definitely need a guy who can be a 3-and-D guy. I mean, you got guys like Josh Hart. You got a lot of offensive firepower, but you don't really have a lot of lockdown defenders. And if the Pelicans aren't gonna keep Lonzo Ball, if they're not gonna keep Josh Hart, if they already moved on from Bledsoe, they still need players who will be able to add defensive intensity, and I definitely think Trey Murphy brings that.
By the way, Cade Cunningham is now at the ESPN desk. I am heartbroken for this guy that he has to wear that Detroit Pistons hat, Will.
Yeah.
Just heartbroken for him.
Yeah, it's tough. He seems in good spirits. I think just being the number one pick makes up for it.
Sure.
But man, yeah, I feel for him.
He's got to go to Detroit, though.
Yeah, he's got to go.
Aaron and I were talking about this a minute ago. There are some organizations that you just kind of feel like it's going to take like the stars aligning for them to come, get out of a hole. And it's Sacramento, it's Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
I think Detroit's in that category. Like maybe Cade is the guy that brings Detroit out, but Detroit's one of those teams, like when they're bad and, nobody wants to go play in Detroit, like
right.
You have to hit a home run in the draft or you're going to be there forever.
Yeah, and this is where it starts. They do have a really solid head coach in Dwayne Casey, but and they have Jeremy Grant already there. They drafted Sadiq Bey, who turned out really well. Isaiah Stewart, who's
I was really high on Sadiq Bey a year ago. I couldn't believe he dropped as far as he did, and the Pistons hit a home run there.
Yeah, they hit a real home run with him. So they've got a lot of solid young prospects, and Cade is going to be running the show. They were missing a point guard. I think they had they traded for Dennis Smith. They got they drafted Kellen Hayes. So, but Cade is that guy who's going to run the franchise. And moving forward, I mean, Detroit's going to have more work to do in the draft. I mean, Cade Cunningham's solid, but he's not going to bring them to the playoffs in his first year, I don't think. So they might be looking at another lottery pick next year to pair with Shea and just continue to build throughout the draft.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you still have, if you're Oklahoma City, Shea is a good guy to build around. Like,
right.
We talked about this earlier. Like, he's a future NBA All-Star. I believe that. Like, I think he's one of those fringe, 20 to 30 best players in the league. You could be in much worse situations than having Shea to build around. The theme of tonight is probably just more like, oh, I can't believe it went this way for OKC. But yeah, look at the makeup of this team right now, and Dort obviously is a guy you like. I'm still like holding out hope that Bazley's going to put it all together, and I think part of the problem last year was you have weird circumstances anyway, and they literally went into, beat us by 50 every night mode.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite ready to sell the stock on Baisley. I want to see what he looks like this year, and there's obviously a little bit of urgency for him to start to progress. But where are you at with the guys that are in place beyond just what happened tonight?
I like the core. Shea, like you said, it's a really good thing to have Shea to build around. And then you have a guy like Dort, who's a two-way player. Then you bring Darius Baisley, who I'm still kind of high on. I think he's got the potential to be special. I just think he's still putting it all together, still getting used to the NBA style of play and everything. He's got potential. He's got the length. He can score the basketball. I mean, of course, he had some inconsistencies, but I think as he continues to grow in the NBA, it'll get better. And so with those three guys, I think you have something solid to build around, and then you add Giddey to that mix. So the Thunder still have a lot of young guys on the team, but
Poku, Maladon, Giddey. It's nice to swing for the fences and try for those home runs, but right now we also have, there's some projects that have some big holes.
Yeah, like Poku's a prime example. he had some moments, but he's a project. He's still got a long way to go in this league. So, Thunder fans definitely wanted this night to go a lot different. They wanted the draft lottery to go a lot different. Sam Presti definitely gave his best effort to try to move up, but these are the cards that he was dealt, and he obviously saw something special in Josh Giddey, and hopefully the Thunder fans this year will see it.
All right, the pick is in for the Oklahoma City Thunder at 18. Again, they traded pick number 16 to the Houston Rockets for 2 future first-round picks that ultimately became an international player to Houston. So this is, although the Thunder are making their 3rd pick of this first round, they're making only their 2nd pick for a guy that's actually going to end up being a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder, barring a trade down the line. You think this is best player available, or you think this is like need where we've been kind of talking about potentially big man?
This one's tough because you could go both ways. But when you are at Oklahoma City and you have your record was 22-50, so there's not really any you need everything basically.
Yeah.
So maybe you do go best available, but if you are Sam Presti, do you look at the need of a big man a little bit more than you do of a guard or of a stretch 4 or whatever the case is, and go ahead and draft a big man?
Yeah. The pick is in. We are just anxiously awaiting Adam Silver to reach the podium so we can find out what this pick is going to be for OKC. And I've actually, once again, accidentally spoiled the pick, so I know what it is. But anybody that's watching the draft and listening to us at the same time, I don't want to do that to them. So I know what it is. I'm anxiously awaiting this to be announced so we can discuss it. Again, recap, OKC picked at 6th. They were not able to trade up, and they took Josh Giddey with the 6th selection. So here we go, Adam Silver walking to the podium. Trey Mann, point guard from the University of Florida, Will. Good size, good length, I guess I should say, for a point guard. I think terrific defender is the one thing that I've most heard about him. This is not a guy that I've seen a ton of. Your thoughts?
Well, he can definitely score the basketball along with being a really solid playmaker, and he adds toughness on defense. At 6'4", he does add size to the point guard position. So with Giddey and with Trey Mann, you do have size. And unlike Josh Giddey, Trey Mann will bring defense, and he will add a solid jump shot at that. So wouldn't have been the way that I would have went because you still have Jalen Johnson and Keon Johnson on the board. But still a solid pick for sure.
Can you make the argument that the Thunder got a better point guard at 18 than they got at 6? Can you make that argument?
You can definitely make that argument because I was saying earlier that you could have waited till 16 to get Josh Giddey. I mean, Trey Mann, this is pick 18, but Trey Mann is in that discussion for the best available as well. So, you can definitely make that case, man. I'm pretty surprised at the Thunder's draft today.
Yeah. Look, I mean, at 18, I like Jalen Johnson a lot more. I would have liked the potential of what Keon Johnson brings. I would say there would probably be a lot of Thunder fans bitching if Keon Johnson had been the pick. They would have been like, oh, great, the next long athletic wing that needs to develop a lot of the skills. But, again, you're talking about, a high ceiling for the guy. If you are going to take a guy like Giddey and you're really unsure as to him working out, the Trey Mann pick to kind of back the number 6 pickup makes a lot of sense, right?
Absolutely, because if you throw all your cards at Josh Giddey, you draft him at 6, but there is a possibility that this just doesn't work out. So you have to have just a backup plan in order, just in case it doesn't work out. And Trey Mann is that. And then you also have Theo Maledon as well.
Bro, so the Thunder just made their last pick of the first round, and there are so many sad people in this building. There are people that are just sitting at their table, heads down. There are a lot of people, I think, Googling Trey Mann at the moment on their phones. And there are also people that literally had their tabs paid, waiting for this announcement, and the announcement was made, and without a facial expression, got up and left.
It was tough. Tonight was tough for Thunder fans for sure. Josh Giddey at 6, you trade away 16, and then at 18, I think people were just like, forget it. Like, whoever it is fine.
Yeah.
A tough night. Definitely a lot of long faces. I mean, normally, I know when the pick was announced, people were kind of at the edge of their seats. Everyone's looking up at the TV.
Who could it be?
Who could it be? And then Josh Giddey's selected. Normally you hear people like, woo, clapping and everything, but you didn't hear none of that for Josh Giddey.
I know with Jalen Johnson, there are the competitive questions. He didn't finish his year at Duke. I've heard it discussed on different podcasts that maybe he didn't interview well, things of that nature. Those are things that I have a hard time wanting to break down because I know very little about them. From a basketball-only perspective, Jalen Johnson to me was a top 10 pick in this draft. From a basketball perspective, if you're picking at 16 or 18 and Jalen Johnson's available, just looking at the guy that he could be and looking at where his body is as a freshman right now, to me, I don't know how you would pass on that. Now, again, if it comes out that, literally this guy, everybody is in agreement, he's not competitive, doesn't want to work, all those questions, then okay, I get it. But the basketball side says I don't know how you pass on him, to me.
I agree with you on the basketball side, but the other part of it is such a big thing as far as his character, his personality. If he wants to go out there and compete every day, I mean, when you're in the NBA, competitiveness is so important. So if he's a guy that's showing low character, if he might have locker room issues, I mean, the Oklahoma City Thunder are used to drafting guys with pretty high character. So if that has turned into a problem, that's the reason why he's been sliding in the draft.
I just got a text from a good friend of mine that is a diehard Thunder fan. He says, and I quote, "Underwhelmed doesn't even to begin to describe our draft tonight with about 1,000 facepalm emojis."
After when I took the break, I checked my phone and there was people saying, "Who the F is Josh Giddey?" So a lot of Thunder fans are underwhelmed. But Sam Presti's playing the cards that he's dealt, and I think that he wanted to get a guy who could take control of the franchise. Josh Giddey coming from overseas, he's got a high basketball IQ, so I mean, if you're looking for positives, those are the positives there with Giddey.
We're also now at that point in the draft where the television broadcast portion to just show us who's actually getting selected and allowing Rachel Nichols and Richard Jefferson the time to talk outweighs how fast the draft is actually moving. Shams and Woj are 3 picks ahead at this point, and. Yeah, this is when it's all right, we just got to wait for the pick to talk about what's next. Let's throw this out while we wait for a couple picks. It's official, Russell Westbrook to the LA Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Russell Westbrook has been in this league for a long time, and he's been a fierce competitor. And playing with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, it gives him a chance to win a championship, and it's something that he hasn't had since he's played with Kevin Durant. He had that year with James Harden, but of course, everything with COVID and injuries messed that up. But playing with the guy as accomplished as LeBron James, playing with the guy as skilled as Anthony Davis, in the Laker organization, it's only and Russ is playing at home too. So I love the situation for Russ. In terms of the fit, in terms of the Lakers and everything, I don't know how that's going to work. I got to see it.
Yeah.
But I'm happy for Russ. He's going into a winning culture. So we'll see how it works.
I used the term regular season horsepower at the beginning of the show because I think he's a guy that was able to play a lot of minutes in the regular season. He's a guy that can, be that piece that you need to win regular season games when you need to sit LeBron James down for a couple games, when inevitably Anthony Davis is going to miss time in the regular season. Russell Westbrook's that guy that can pick up the slack and still get you regular season wins. When you get to the postseason, this is where it becomes interesting. And we had this conversation a couple years ago in Houston. Houston was great in the regular season, right? But what happens when you get to the postseason and all of a sudden it's a situation where who's going to have the ball? How are teams going to defend you when they don't necessarily have to respect Russell Westbrook's outside shot if he doesn't have the ball? If he does have the ball in critical moments, is he going to make the right decisions? I mean, you now put that in perspective to LeBron James. You're not taking LeBron off the ball.
Right.
Why would you ever, especially in critical moments of a game, give Russell Westbrook the ball over LeBron James? And nobody's going to respect Russell Westbrook's ability to shoot the ball. So I think that only drastically more impacts the way that teams are going to be able to defend LeBron and AD. I like it for what they're going to be next regular season, and I like it for the workload that he's going to be able to put on his shoulders over the course of 82 games that may allow LeBron and Anthony Davis to be healthier next postseason. But if we're talking about Russell Westbrook potentially being the difference in the Lakers winning a title or not, I'm not there.
Yeah, I'm not there either. And while you were talking, you brought up how Russ is going to be able to be a minute eater and how he's going to be able to help LeBron and AD get through the regular season. But still, how do you see those three potentially playing together? How do you see Russell Westbrook being the third option? Because he's never been a third option in his entire career.
Right.
While in the regular season is great, but come playoff time, Russell Westbrook's going to be looked at as the third option.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And when those guys do play together in the regular season,
probably look good.
What's that going to look like? You're right. It will look good because, again, teams – the effort level given in the regular season versus the playoffs is exactly why Russell Westbrook looks like an MVP in the regular season and why he looks like, I don't want to say just a guy in the postseason, but significantly lesser of a player in the postseason.
Yeah, but you start to wonder, man, what's wrong with Russ? What's going on with Russ today? It's not anything that Russ is doing different. It's that the teams are, yes, they're approaching him differently. They're actually trying defensively for longer periods of the game, and they actually are going to try and take away your strengths and force you into your weaknesses. Nobody does that in the NBA except for maybe the final couple minutes of a game if it's close and you have the opportunity to win. But even then, I don't feel like we necessarily see teams go all out from that standpoint. Yeah. Nobody's attacking Enes Kanter every possession defensively during the regular season, right? There's a reason, because there's just no point in doing it. You know it's there. You don't need to do it in the regular season. You're going to do that when you get to the playoffs. Right. But you're not going to force the other team to take him out of the game in game 31 of 82.
That's why Russell Westbrook kills in the regular season.
Right. And just like you were saying, so Steph Curry, the Cleveland won a championship because they were down 3-1 and they started using switching on to Steph Curry. So they would get Steph Curry switch on to LeBron James, or Steph Curry switch on to Kyrie Irving. They were trying to hide him on J.R. Smith, but they started using him in pick and rolls, and they were switching. So LeBron and Kyrie started to have their way, and Golden State didn't really have an adjustment for that. You can't take Steph Curry out the game.
Right.
So it's the same thing with Russ in the playoffs. When you take away his strength, when you take away the paint, it forces him to take outside shots, and that's why we see his percentages be so low in the playoffs. He's still going to play as hard as he can. He's still going to give you everything, but I mean, when it comes to playoff time, IQ becomes a really big part of it, and he's never really had an answer for when teams take away the paint. And,
I agree.
And now he's going to be in LA, and when he's asked to just go stand in the corner while LeBron and AD run a pick and roll in the last 5 minutes of the game, how's he going to take that? I mean, if he wants to win a championship, this has got to be the sacrifice that he makes. If not, then the Lakers are going to be in a world of trouble.
Here's the interesting part. Russell Westbrook, I believe, could be one of the best defenders in the NBA. Like, he could be that.
Right.
When he wants to, he defends at a really high level. Now, we also understand that his usage rate has been through the roof for, the last 5 years.
Right.
And there's a reason why he doesn't play as hard defensively as maybe some would like. Sometimes I think it does dip below that acceptable level, if I'm being honest. But that said, Russell Westbrook potentially becomes your defensive stopper in LA against the best perimeter offensive player for the other team. If he's not being asked to handle the same load offensively because you have LeBron James, maybe he's the guy that you just say, hey, go lock up whoever it is.
If he's going to exert his energy on offense, or if he's not going to exert his energy on offense, he's going to have to do it somewhere else. And defensively is definitely the perfect place for him to exert his energy. He's got a high motor. And if he's going to be just standing in the corner offensively, he's going to have a lot of pent-up energy that he wants to just get out. Yeah. So, and, man, I wanted to talk about the pick. Like, Atlanta, with such a great young core, they just drafted Jalen Johnson.
With the 20th pick in the draft.
With the 20th pick in the draft. They have such a great young core already, and just to add a guy like Jalen Johnson, this is a steal.
The thing you have to remember about Atlanta, they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they pushed Milwaukee before Trae Young gets hurt. They did it without DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah.
Who, you can make the argument is probably, their third best player?
Right.
They did that without DeAndre Hunter, who is a young player that is a perfect complement to the way that team's built. I'm not saying he's an all-star by any means, but he is a perfect complement to the pieces they already have in place. There's a lot of conversation. I love Cam Reddish as well, by the way. There's a lot of conversation, though, that they're looking to move out of Cam Reddish's deal because they just don't. I don't know what the situation is. Maybe they don't feel like they're going to have the money to be able to re-sign him on the next go-round. But if you're looking to move a Cam Reddish, bringing in a guy like Jalen Johnson as just another versatile player along in that offense is just amazing.
Oh. Welcome, man. Welcome.
So
DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish, they're kind of like the same player in a way. So maybe they're all in on DeAndre Hunter. They drafted a guy like Jalen Johnson. Yeah. So maybe Cam Reddish is just kind of like the odd man out.
Could be.
They already have like Bogdanovich there, Kevin Huerter.
Gallinari,
Gallinari, Kevin Huerter looked really good in the playoffs. So they have a lot of guys who are kind of similar, who are eating up a lot of minutes. So maybe Cam Reddish is just the odd man out because he has had a lot of injury problems, but he looked good when he did come back from injury in that game 6, I believe, against Milwaukee. I believe he had like 24 points and hit 6 threes, played some great defense as well. But I just think with all the players they have, all the versatile wings that they have, maybe just Cam Reddish is the odd man out.
Yeah. Jalen Johnson to Atlanta is one of my favorite picks of this first round.
Yeah, and how about Golden State with their draft? They were talking about moving out of 7 and 14 to trade to get an All-Star caliber player, and then they end up with Kuminga and Moody. Like that's an A+ draft.
They hit a home run, home run
for sure.
Because Kuminga, I wasn't super high on him, but a lot of that was because I just didn't feel like there's a lot of polish there, and he has so much raw ability that it's going to take some time.
Right.
Golden State's a perfect place for that to happen.
Perfect.
They don't need him to come in and they're not Orlando where they are looking at him as a starter day one.
Right.
He's a guy that can come in and just develop, and if he's able to give you something, great. If not, okay, maybe you miss on this thing, but there's massive upside there. Moody's going to play big minutes for them. They've hit a home run in this draft.
Yeah, and, with Kuminga, of course, he'll probably get in and play a little bit. But, of course, you already have Draymond Green. You already got Pascal. You already got James Wiseman. But, like you said, we're saying with Moody is he can go in and play right now and give you some really solid minutes. He's NBA ready. He can score the basketball really well. And then you got a guy like Klay Thompson who's coming off of 2 horrific injuries. I'm sure as much as he's going to want to play as much as he can as far as playing, 35-plus minutes. Yeah. He's not going to play back-to-back. He's not going to be playing that many minutes. So a guy like Moody is perfect for him to come in and just be that scorer.
Yeah. Yeah, they hit a home run. And, look, I think if you're Orlando, you were picking at 5, and I'm sure they thought, the option's probably Scotty Barnes or Kuminga potentially, or I was convinced that Kuminga was just going to be another Jonathan Isaac type pick for Orlando, or Scotty Barnes kind of in that same scenario where it's really hard to pass on him in that situation, but he's also not a guy that I feel like goes in there and just helps them immediately anyway. For them to sit at 5 and kind of be on the outside looking in and to still get one of those 4 premier players in this draft is outstanding.
Yeah, they just basically accidentally drafted Jalen Suggs.
Yeah.
I'm still confused on what Toronto, why they picked Scotty Barnes. Not to take anything away from Scotty Barnes, but in terms of fit, they already have Siakam, they already have OG Anunoby, they kind of already have guys who have the body type of a Scotty Barnes. You already have Fred VanVleet, but he's used to playing off the ball. So bring another guy who can be a leader, who can be the point guard. So I thought Jalen Suggs in Toronto was just a perfect match.
Well, they gave Fred VanVleet that monster contract because they wanted him to be the guy that takes over the ball when Kyle Lowry's done. So they're going to give Fred VanVleet the basketball. He's going to be that guy. So I assume it was probably a situation where they have VanVleet, and Scotty Barnes is a bit of a glue guy that does a little bit of everything. And even though he's not great necessarily at anything, he's probably a guy that you can ask to play a bunch of different roles and fit whatever mold you need him to fit.
Right. Well, if that's
I don't know. I think it's idiotic to pass on Jalen Suggs, period.
If that's the case, then Toronto should have just swapped the picks with Oklahoma City, just drafted Jalen Suggs, and everyone could have been happy. But now Toronto fans are probably questioning the pick. Why'd you pass up on Jalen Suggs? And then Oklahoma City fans are like, well, we got Josh Giddey. Giddy up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, before Jalen Johnson went to the Hawks, the Knicks drafted Kai Jones, who is being traded to the Hornets. So that's a Hornets draft pick. Kai Jones, the big man out of Texas, center out of Texas. This is a guy that, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if he plays really good minutes in 2 or 3 years. The timeline for these centers, especially like Kai Jones, who are super athletic and 7 foot, for them to get physically ready to play against the upper tier big men in the NBA, it takes a couple years anyway. Look at DeAndre Ayton.
Right.
It took him a couple years to physically be able to play this game at a high level at that position. Kai Jones doesn't have nearly the same upside that DeAndre Ayton has, but he's one of those guys, at this point, if there's not a guy you absolutely love, sure. Maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, he turns into a starting center for you.
Yeah, and he has the athleticism, like you said, and he's able to rim protect. He's got a lot of potential. He's going to the Hornets, and I feel like the Hornets are going to be moving away from some of their big men, like the Cody Zellers and the Bismack Biyombo. So They definitely needed a center if they're looking to get rid of some of those older guys that they have at that position. And Kai Jones, like you said, he's a long rim protector, block a lot of shots. So I think he's perfect for that for the Hornets.
The New York Knicks have just selected Keon Johnson from Tennessee. This guy set the NBA Draft Combine vertical record, Will, with a 48-inch vertical. I mean, as far as just athlete, this guy's a freak, man.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Jalen Green and how his athleticism just kind of jumps out at you, but this guy, Keon Johnson, my gosh, like his athleticism is it's almost scary. Like, how are you able to jump that high and do it? Look at this, like
insane.
It almost just seems easy, effortless.
Yeah.
He just jumps up a little bit and he's just gliding and just flying in the air.
Yeah.
And like we said about Jalen Green, how he would probably end up on SportsCenter. This is another guy who will end up there as well.
And especially in that market, I think if he is a guy that can play solid minutes at all, Knicks fans will love him.
Absolutely.
I mean,
just like with Obi Toppin last year.
Yeah. You look at the fit. You know, they got Emmanuel Quickley, who's a young guy. Obviously, Julius Randle really flourished last year and became an NBA All-Star. I still like R.J. Barrett as a young guy that continues to develop. I still think that he has a higher ceiling than we've seen. I don't think he's close to reaching his potential yet. You mentioned Obi Toppin. I like what Keon Johnson kind of adds to that core.
Yeah, Keon Johnson adds a lot of athleticism, but to what they already have, like you said, Julius Randle looked really good. It became an All-Star last year. Mitchell Robinson is a young center who got hurt last year, but he's really, really talented. R.J. Barrett, we haven't seen the best out of him, but I think he took a step last year for sure. In the playoffs, he didn't play as well, but that's his first playoffs. I mean, everyone looks different in their first playoffs.
Right.
It's
a different game.
Yeah, it's a completely different game.
As we've laid out, yeah.
They're probably going to miss out on Reggie Bullock this year. He'll probably sign somewhere else. You never know. He might sign back, but he's going to have a big market. So a guy like Keon Johnson is going to come in and potentially fight for those minutes that Bullock was getting.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that was very clear is they desperately need someone that can just go get buckets in the postseason. It was painful, I think is an understatement to say, but it was painful to watch them play offensively against Atlanta.
Man, Julius Randle, you knew what he was going to do because in the playoffs, it's all right, the half-court offense is breaking down. We need you to go get a bucket. Julius Randle was going left every time, behind the back, step back three. I mean, it was just the same type of stuff. And then R.J. Barrett wasn't doing anything different. I mean, at least Derrick Rose was kind of giving you something, getting into the paint and shooting floaters and everything.
Yeah.
But Julius Randle was just shooting really, really tough shots. And that's an example. Like in the regular season, those were easy 25-plus nights for him. But once you get into the playoffs and you see these teams really key in on you, you really start to see like what these guys really are truly made of in those moments. And he shot pretty bad percentage-wise in the playoffs. But the Knicks definitely need a guy that is going to be able to give you buckets.
By the way, all that stuff we just talked about out the window because he's going to the Clippers.
Keon Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
mean, there's a lot to talk about with the Clippers as well.
Well, there you go. I mean, in another big media market, and they're going to love him equally with his highlight ability. All right, here is the Lakers pick that goes to the Wizards in the Russell Westbrook trade. So the Lakers make the pick for the Wizards. Heading to the Washington Wizards, a guy we talked about a little bit earlier, Isaiah Jackson from Kentucky.
Yeah, a long player who's able to block shots, rim protector. He's kind of got a similar to maybe a Clint Capella, that type of player who will be able to catch lobs and rim protect. He doesn't have a lot of weight to him, but he's definitely an athlete, and he's very explosive. So
kind of reminds me of Willie Cauley-Stein a little bit coming out of Kentucky.
Yeah, definitely with the similar builds. So, yeah, I definitely like this pick for Washington, a young guy who can rim protect.
Yeah, shot blocker, but explain this to people real quick because you're a basketball player, so you can probably explain it better than I can. But shot blocker doesn't necessarily equal good defender.
Yeah, I mean, There's a complete difference because, I mean, if you're driving into the lane and then all of a sudden you leave your defender and then you go up and block a shot, that doesn't necessarily make you a good defender. I mean,
makes you a great shot blocker.
That makes you a great shot blocker. There's a complete difference.
Yeah.
Being able to lock down someone on the perimeter, to being able to lock down someone in the post. Shot blocking is completely different from being a defender.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's one of those, like I think that I've heard media members like discussing all defensive teams, and they'll pull up statistics and like immediately go to blocks.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not saying you can't be a great defender and a great shot blocker.
Right.
But those things don't have they don't have to go hand in hand. Like those are separate things. You can potentially be both, but one doesn't necessarily make you the other.
I don't think when you talk about defense, I don't think you start with shot blocking. I think you start with being able to lock down someone on the perimeter. Being
even
able
steals is that's another example. I think sometimes you just like, who led the league in steals? Like
that
taking the ball away, again, it's a great skill, but it doesn't necessarily make you a great defender.
Because there's a difference between if you're actually stealing the ball from someone or if you're just in the passing lane, being in the right spot. I mean, that's a lot of what defense is being in the right spot, being on a string with your teammates, being in help and all that. But in terms of being an on-ball defender, that's what you want to think about when you talk about defense.
What if you get a couple steals a game, but you also give up 40 every night to your opponent? I mean,
that's kind of what we see now. Yeah. I mean, the guys are getting 3 and 4 steals, but this Trae Young had 48 points.
Right.
So.
Like, I don't even need to look at where Drew Holiday ranks in the NBA in steals to know he's the best perimeter defender in the NBA.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just those things aren't. When people see the term, and the reason I bring it up is Isaiah Jackson, people see the term shot blocker. And I think in their mind, they put those two terms together, and it turns into good defensive player. I'm like, not necessarily, but, we don't have to rule it out either.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good shot blocker, but, I mean, if someone has their back to the basket and they're backing him down, I mean, he's only 200 pounds.
Right, yeah. He's 6'11", but he weighs as much as I do.
I mean, if you give him a fake, I mean, he's going to jump, and then so, I mean, his post defense might not be that good, but he can block shots. So there is a difference.
Yeah. Guy that I like that is still on the board. I don't know if he'll make it to Oklahoma City at the top of the second round. Also, they've already taken 2 point guards, so maybe that rules this guy out. But Jared Butler from Baylor, part of the national championship team, he's a guy that I don't know that he does anything great, but he's just good across the board.
Yeah, and he made a lot of big shots for Baylor in the tournament. So big shot maker, can run the team. But like you said, with the Thunder taking 2 point guards already, but maybe you never know. Maybe they need a backup to the backup in terms of plans if Josh Giddey doesn't work out. So.
Also, Isaiah Jackson has now already been traded. Again, I said we've reached that point where every other pick is going to be moved. So as soon as we talk about the fit, we're going to have to talk about the fit somewhere else. He is on his way to Indiana, which might signal, if Indiana's trading for him, that might signal the end of Miles Turner in Indiana, who's been one of the better shot blockers in the NBA for the last several seasons.
Yeah, I really like Miles Turner's game. I think he brings a lot defensively, but also he can stretch the floor offensively. He can make threes. He can still be a post presence as well. I think the trade marker for him will be huge. I think a team like Golden State was talking about bringing him in. I think contenders will really be looking to try to get a guy like Miles Turner. He brings a lot to the table for sure.
All right, so I am seeing tweets on the number 23 selection. It looks like the broadcast has now caught up as well. So they just showed the pick is in for the Houston Rockets at 23. Here we go. You know what? This is our buddy to our right is a massive Houston Rockets fan. So we'll get to see his reaction following the Rockets taking Jalen Green with the number 2 overall pick in this draft. They now have back-to-back selections here, I believe, at 23 and 24. Best available, Usman Garuba, Cameron Thomas, Sharif Cooper, Jared Butler, who we just discussed, and Day'Ron Sharp from North Carolina. North Carolina had 5 like 6'11" dudes on their roster last year. They had to be the biggest team in the country, and those guys rotated a lot of minutes. They were a massive disappointment. It wasn't a very good basketball team. I don't know that any of those guys really had the opportunity to develop into what they should be. So here we go. Usman Garuba, Spain, to the Houston Rockets. This was the guy that I said I would bet on to be the Thunder's pick at 18. I've heard mixed feelings on this guy.
Well, automatically when I saw the picture of him, you could just tell he's got a high motor. But this is a guy who can rebound the ball. He plays really hard. He just does. I feel like he does a lot of garbage things. He's kind of like a garbage man in a way. But I think he'll be really good as a stretch 5 type guy or a 4-man in the NBA. He's got the body for sure.
So you're saying that if he were to play for the Oklahoma City Thunder 10 years down the road, his jersey would be retired?
Absolutely.
That's the kind of player that you're saying he is. I mean, or at least that's the way I kind of like correlated that description with previous events in Oklahoma City Thunder basketball history.
Yeah, his jersey's going up in the Raptors, absolutely.
Glue guy, does all the small things, rebounds, sets really good screens, works hard, bleeds like nobody's business.
Mr. Thunder 2.0.
I saw somebody tweet this about 10 minutes ago, and I want to bring it up. The tweet was, we spent 3 months losing by 50 every night for Josh Giddey.
Yeah.
That also is a little bit of a kick in the stomach, right? Like when you think about, once again, the Thunder, I think early in the season, we all thought they were going to be one of the bottom 3 teams in the NBA.
Right.
Once again, early in the season, they surprised us. Now, take that for what it's worth. It's early season, NBA basketball, but they were better than anybody anticipated, without a doubt. I think that's fair to say. But to go from, hey, this is a mild surprise that they're better than we thought, to they're getting drilled and setting records on a nightly basis for, margin of victory. And that results in, first, the number 6 pick, and then the inability to get out of that pick and get a better pick. And then it turns into Josh Giddey, a guy that is a project that has some major deficiencies. Punch to the gut, right?
Yeah, it's a massive punch to the gut, because you build all of this up. Like once you make it be known that you're tanking, you know why you're tanking. You're tanking for the draft. You're tanking to get a high pick in the draft. You're one of the bottom 3 teams. So then you expect to get one of the, a top 5 pick, and then for it to be number 6, just right outside of the top 5, that's kind of a gut punch. But then for your first pick after all that build-up to be Josh Giddey, when you could have got Jalen Suggs, or not could have got Jalen Suggs, but when you were 1 pick away from getting Jalen Suggs, and then if you don't get Suggs, so you want to go with the best available, and then all of a sudden you just get Josh Giddey. So it's all really just confusing at this point. So definitely a gut punch.
Yeah, or a junk punch, if you want to just take it a step further. All right, we are at the 24th pick in the first round. There's a name that I like, Miles McBride, on the best available from West Virginia. He's also a guy that might just be a career backup, Will, but a guy that I think plays hard, defends well, decent shooter. Like, he could be one of those guys that sticks around the league for multiple contracts, and maybe never starts for a team. Yeah,
we're past the point of guys who will probably get into the starting lineup, or guys who will get high minutes. We're at the point now where we're looking at guys who are backups, but backups are so important in this game. Like, what happens if you are a team that's dealing with injuries? You have to look to your bench, and bench depth is so important. Jared Butler's still on the board. Day'Ron Sharp is still on the board. Josh Christopher is still on the board. Like, there's still a lot of really solid players that's still out there to be drafted. But Miles McBride's definitely a really solid player.
The best players in NBA history to be selected with the number 24 pick in the draft. We've got Let's start with, we've got Terry Rozier from the Portland Trail Blazers. We have Arvydas Sabonis, Latrell Sprewell.
Wow.
Who, I was a big Sprewell fan of the Golden State days. Sam Cassell.
Wow.
24th pick in the 93 draft, 3-time NBA champion. Andre Karolinko, AK-47.
Hey, this is a solid list.
This is probably better than a lot of picks. Kyle Lowry was a number 24 selection.
Wow.
Serge Ibaka was a number 24 selection. So there you go. I looked at the list of number 6 overall picks like a week ago. I'm pretty sure that list is better than the best picks at number 6 in NBA history.
Yeah, I can't even tell you, like, off the top of my head who has been drafted number 6 previously, who's just been, like, a big success. But that was number 24. Like, Sam Cassell had a great career. Kyle Lowry had a great career. Andre Karolinko had a long career. Arvydas Sabonis was one of the best big men in the game. Latrell Sprewell went to the NBA Finals with the Knicks. Like, a lot of big names.
He was all NBA when he was in Golden State before the choke happened with PJ, the first coach in Thunder history. All right, here we go. We're going to go back in the NBA yearbook, and I'm going to go over the number 6 picks. So let's just hope that it works out better for Josh Giddey than it has for 90% of what we're about to throw out there, okay? So we had Josh Giddey as the number 6 pick this year. Last year it was Jarrett Culver, who I think we all really liked coming out of Tech, but it's not turned out positive for him to this point.
Right.
Again, it's only been 2 years, but Culver from Tech in 2019, Mo Bamba in 2018, Jonathan Isaac in 2017, Buddy Hield in 2016, who's become a good NBA player. Willie Cauley-Stein in 2015. Average, just, he makes rosters. Marcus Smart.
Okay, yeah.
Good player, solid player.
Yeah.
Nerlens Noel, kind of a big man journeyman.
Mm-hmm.
Damian Lillard is by far the best number 6 player, I think, ever. Damian Lillard in 2012. Jan Vesely in 2011. Epe Udoh, Edmund's own Epe Udoh, in 2010. I don't think he made a second contract in the NBA. I think he was in China, maybe? Or it could have been one of the Euro leagues.
Right.
Johnny Flynn in 2009 out of Syracuse.
When they could have got Steph Curry.
Yep. Danilo Gallinari in 2008, which is one of the better number 6 picks on this list. Remember Yi Jianlian?
Oh, yeah. Everyone thought
by
he was
the Milwaukee Bucks.
Everyone thought he was the next Yao Ming.
In 2006. Martell Webster by Portland in 2005, who was, I think, just longtime NBA player, career backup, basically.
Yeah, solid.
Josh Childress in 2004. Chris Kaman, 2003. DeJuan Wagner, who I loved watching when he was at Memphis.
Yeah.
Didn't turn out in the NBA, but DeJuan Wagner in 2002. Shane Battier in 2001. DeMar Johnson from Cincinnati in 2000. We can go back to the 90s. Wally Zerbiak, who actually was an all-star, I believe, one year with Minnesota.
Yep.
Robert Tractor Trailer in 98. Ron Mercer, who will always be one of my biggest misses because I just thought this guy was going to be a future perennial all-star when he came out of Kentucky, and that didn't happen. Ron Mercer in 97. Antoine Walker in 96, who became an all-star. Big Country in 95.
Reeves.
Fantastic until injuries cut his career short. Sharon Wright, Clemson. Horrible. Worst case scenario. You drafted a guy in today's NBA that plays on the perimeter but is unathletic and can't shoot.
Some disgruntled Thunder fans have approached us.
Right. They have all those picks that everybody's convinced they're going to be able to trade to move up. They can't trade to move up. They end up with this guy that can't shoot the ball but plays guard. Worst case scenario. And then they trade number 16 for 2 future first rounders that once again they're not going to be able to use to trade into the top 5 of an NBA draft. Amen. Agree 100%. It's not good. What do you? Yeah.
Well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Spirited conversation there.
Yes, some disgruntled Thunder fans, to say the least.
Yeah.
And at first we were using underwhelming and everything, but he said disgusted. Like,
he was disgusted. Yeah.
he was disgusted.
Yeah. I mean, look, the bottom. Like, maybe this guy becomes a really good player. Like, I'm not gonna say that he won't or that he can't.
Right.
But I'm gonna say that when you're picking at number 6 in the NBA draft to take a guy that is a guard, that plays on the perimeter, that's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, and he's not athletically explosive, and he doesn't finish at the rim, and he doesn't shoot the ball well, like those are pretty damning deficiencies for the number 6 pick in the NBA draft.
Yeah.
Like, if the Thunder take him at 12, this is probably a completely different conversation. But with the number 6 pick in the draft, taking a guy that has a deficiency of struggles to shoot the basketball in today's NBA is not what you're looking for.
Yeah, especially when there's guys on the board who would have helped you. Moses Moody was still on the board. Kuminga was still on the board. Like, so many different guys who that you could have went with, but instead you pick Josh Giddey, who, like you said, has a lot of deficiencies. But I'm sure Sam Presti will get on the press conference and he'll be very positive. He'll talk about how much he likes Josh Giddey. He'll talk about all the positives. I don't think he'll probably won't address any of the shooting concerns that the fans have, but he'll probably talk about his IQ, about how he's been playing professionally a lot longer than a lot of the guys in the draft. So, and like you said, I mean, this could work out. This could be something that we're just missing, and Josh Giddey could bring something to the table that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, maybe he becomes all NBA.
But from what we know,
right,
it doesn't seem likely.
Well, and look, I here's the other thing. We've seen less of Josh Giddey than any of the other top 15 players in this draft.
Right.
So out of the gate, you're at a disadvantage as far as just what we've seen from him, comparing him to the other players. But secondly, when you see the negatives that are listed against him, and in the little bit you've seen, those are kind of backed up. Right. You're right. You don't see him hitting a bunch of shots. You don't see a lot of athleticism.
Right.
That's not to say he doesn't have positives to his game, but when you're taking him with the number 6 pick and going into this draft, all the conversation is about getting a difference maker and trying to move up, and you failed to move up, and you have to make this number 6 pick. You're in a bad situation anyway because you weren't able to move up, and you're stuck with this pick, and it becomes a guy that has as glaring deficiencies as he has versus guys that, look, maybe there were other guys that had less upside but a significantly higher floor. I think a lot of people would have been happier with that, myself included. In today's NBA, I have a hard time, especially with a lottery pick, taking a guard that struggles to shoot.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I just don't know how that's a winning recipe.
Yeah, and he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. So if he's going to be the one that's trying to make plays and people aren't even guarding him, he might just become a liability. But, I mean, we're going to have to see what he brings to the table offensively. I mean, I'm sure in the regular season we'll see a lot of some highlights of him making some nice passes and everything. But when it comes to scoring and everything, I mean, he's got a lot to prove. I mean.
Well, here's the other thing. Let's look at this from the grand scheme of things. Again, assuming that right now the team that's together is what we're looking at, and that's probably going to change. But Shea needs the ball in his hands. Maladon is better, I think, as a ball-dominant guy. Would you agree with that or no? Okay.
Yeah.
Poku, does he need the ball in his hands?
Not necessarily.
Okay. When they drafted him, he was kind of a point forward, was kind of like what he was sold as. So maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. This guy is a guy that,
needs the ball.
He definitely needs the ball. He's not if he's not a threat to shoot,
right,
and his the best thing about him is his passing ability. That means the ball's going to be in his hands, which once again, you're taking the ball out of Shea's hands to give it to this guy. Like, I don't know, man. It just doesn't.
Baze is going to need the ball.
Yeah,
I feel like
add up.
He does better when he's being a creator as far as like creating a shot for himself. So
yeah. And if you are not a shooter, you're already shrinking the floor anyway for your offense,
right?
Because teams don't have to respect you. But then this Thunder team is notorious for not having shooters.
Oh God, yeah.
So like it's just like there are major issues that are just compacted by like what the situation in Oklahoma City is.
Yeah. And you almost forget, because I completely just forgot, like, Kemba Walker's still on the roster.
Kemba, yeah.
So, I mean, with them drafting a point guard, though, does this mean that Kemba's probably on his way out
I
soon?
assume Kemba's going to be traded at some point. Now, if they can't find the right deal, maybe he starts the season here. But I would have a really hard time imagining Kemba being on Oklahoma City after the trade deadline.
Right, yeah. Agreed. And for me, with them drafting a point guard, I think we'll probably see Kemba out sooner rather than later if they're, like you said, if they're able to find the trade partner, because his contract does factor in. But, with them drafting a point guard so early at 6 when there were better players on the board, I think they're really wanting to build around Josh Giddey.
Yeah. Well, and I always look at teams this way as well. Like, who are your best 5 players? And how are you going to get those guys on the floor when the game is on the line and, every possession matters and you're trying to figure out, these are my best 5 guys, they're going to go win me this game. If you have a top 10 pick, like, I think you're not a good team,
right?
A, because you have a top 10 pick, or maybe you're lucky like Golden State was and you've had injuries and whatnot. But most of the time, if you're picking in the top 10, you're not a good team.
Right.
So even if you're not necessarily getting a star caliber player, which is obviously not the case, not everybody in the top 10 gets a star caliber player. In fact, it's a rare thing. Like, it's really hard to find those guys. But picking in the top 10 means you should be picking a guy that you feel like is one of your best 5 players.
Absolutely.
Like, you're at that point where you're picking in the top 10 because you're not any good. So picking this guy means he should be coming in, and you're hoping that he's going to be one of your best 5. I don't know how Josh Giddey, with this current Thunder team, is getting on the floor as one of the best 5 players with the game on the line.
Yeah, because right away you have Shea, you have Dort. If Kimba's there, Kimba will be there.
Kimba and Shea for sure. And let's just say Kimba's gone. Even at that point, is he on the floor?
It's a really interesting conversation. I mean, maybe he's forced on the floor because he's a guy who will probably set up the offense and take the ball out of Shea's hands, maybe, so Shea doesn't have to be the guy that's setting up the offense. But outside of that, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a head scratcher in so many ways, and I'm sure there's going to be somebody that's going to pump this pick up and tell us, why we're all stupid, because there's always that contrarian that's going to just go against the grain for the sake of going against the grain. And I'll be honest with you, I can't wait to hear that person try and sell everybody on why this pick is great, why it's going to work, and why the Thunder are smarter than everybody else in the NBA.
There's no way that anybody looked at that pick and just was like, this is a smart pick. Like, I would have went with Josh Giddey at 6, or I'm surprised he didn't go sooner. Like, come on, man. Like, I'm sure that there's not anybody, maybe outside of the Thunder organization, that thought that Josh Giddey was top 6 material.
Yeah, I told you I didn't have him in my top 10. I think I had him as the 13th or 14th ranked player, and again, because he does do some good things, and there is upside. Like, it's not like this guy's a bum, but like there's no way I'm putting him in, especially ahead of guys like Moody.
Yeah,
or Bouknight.
That's the only thing that's what this is. Like, he's a lottery pick. We all know we giving him credit of being a lottery pick and everything, but when you got guys on the board like Moody, like Bouknight, like Kuminga, like all these different guys, I mean, it's hard to just say, like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick Josh Giddey in front of all of these guys.
We had the conversation about Jalen Johnson a second ago, who went 20th. If the Thunder had taken Jalen Johnson over Josh Giddey at number 6, at least for me, I think that's a better path than what they did.
I mean, I'm sure that people still would have been scratching their heads, but still, like, when you –
well, yeah, of course, but yeah.
But still, like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, Jalen Johnson, just his skill set, everything he brings to the table, it's more of a fit for what the Thunder what the Thunder do now. But when you bring in a Josh Giddey, it's so confusing, man. So confusing.
There has been a lot of leading up to this, like Sam is the man, in Presti we trust. I wouldn't say every. I've seen a few tweets that are like, I don't like it, but I'm willing to give Presti the benefit of the doubt, type things. But I think the overwhelming majority of people are like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like,
yeah. I'm kind of on that side. Like, okay, yeah. I'm willing to give Presti the benefit of the doubt because of his track record, but I'm so confused on what we're doing here with this because, I mean, the tanking part was, I mean, it was clear. I mean, once you trade Russell Westbrook and you trade Chris Paul away and all that stuff, you know that the tank is coming.
Right.
So, I mean, of course, and Presti we trust. It's all good. But for the whole tanking and all this to end up with Josh Giddey and as your first pick that you choose with this, it's just confusing.
What are the chances that all the scouting reports on Josh Giddey are wrong and he just comes in and he's a sharpshooter and we see him like getting to the bucket and dunking on people?
I mean, that might be what it has to be because for Sam Presti to go with the number 6 pick and pick this guy in front of so many different players, I mean, there's got to be something that we don't know that he knows.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm willing to completely admit that I've seen far less of him than any other player that was picked in the lottery, and so naturally, there's just a lack of information, to be honest, on him versus the other guys. So that already puts him at a disadvantage in my rankings anyway. But then when you go into depth on what the deficiencies are, what the negatives are to his game. And when we've just watched what Ben Simmons was incapable of doing, when we've watched firsthand Russell Westbrook do amazing things as one of the most athletic human beings on earth, but also have that deficiency of not being able to shoot, and you understand how detrimental that is to a team for that position specifically. You read that, and it's backed up in the minimal amount of information that you're able to watch with your own eyes. We could all be wrong, but I get why even the people that have some sort of awareness of what kind of player this guy is, why those people are upset. I get it. If you're one of those people that's never heard of the guy, and you're like, I don't know who Josh Giddey is, this is a horrible pick.
Right.
That's usually what happens, and I totally understand that. You don't know the guy versus, somebody that was a known commodity, you're always going to be upset. But I think even the people that did the amount of homework that was available to do are kind of asking the same questions. What?
Yeah. Josh Giddey at 6, that's a very valid question. But still, I mean, when you look at the highlights of him, I mean, of course, you see good passing. You see a guy who's able to control maybe the pace of the game. Maybe that's what Sam Presti liked so much, and he has been playing professionally longer than any of the players in the draft. So maybe that's another thing. But he's not very athletic, and this is a league where these guys are elite athletes. And now you're getting more guys like Jalen Green and Keon Johnson, and these guys who are just freak athletically. Josh Giddey doesn't really bring much athleticism.
Yeah.
Shooting, we haven't seen much when it comes to shooting, but the only thing that we know for sure is that this guy has high IQ, but outside of that, what is he bringing to the table? It's just a lot of questions. And then for you to drop to number 6, I mean, what can you say to back that up? I'm curious to see what Sam Presti has to say to back to draft him up at number 6.
Yeah. All right, stick around. We'll get your final thoughts. We're only 3 picks away from the end of this first round, so hang out for a minute. We'll come back to you. I want to get Aaron Davis' final thoughts here as this first round is about to come to an end. Now that he's also, like us, had more time to kind of digest the Josh Giddey pick at number 6 and find out what Aaron thinks of the Trey Mann pick, because we haven't had the chance to get his comments on that yet. So Aaron, are you any less satisfied or more satisfied in the number 6 pick now that you've had some time to kind of breathe?
Yeah, no, it was fun. Tonight was a good mock draft, a good practice run for the drafts to see what might happen if things played out the way they did. And,
yeah, let's start this thing over tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Let's do the real draft tomorrow now
Right.
that,
a little mulligan on the whole thing. I don't feel any better. Like, I'm not going to sit here and trash the pick necessarily because, like I said earlier, we don't really know what he can do for 48 minutes or 40 minutes or anything. I don't know.
For sure.
I don't know anything that he can do on a possession-to-possession basis. But I know from the scouting report and from the highlight tape, and by the way, I sent you a little clip of him dunking,
I saw
and
it,
the athleticism. Primo. Not Primo like the Spurs draft pick.
Not Josh Primo.
Not Josh Primo, but he could be a difference maker, but it's not going to be this year. It's not going to be next year. And Royce Young tweeted out earlier that the plan is to extend Shea right now, which makes absolute sense on both ends.
For sure.
I mean, he's going to be a restricted free agent next year in Oklahoma City. Don't let him walk. And if you're Shea, you're going to make more money by re-signing with Oklahoma City right now. So, I mean, he's not going anywhere for a while, and I just don't know how Josh Giddey really fits in to the scheme outside of he has to be a second unit guy.
Yeah.
He's got to be the point guard with that second unit, and you just got to add some shooters to put around him and somebody that can catch alley-oops, and he could thrive in the NBA. But right now, as this roster is constructed, I think Trey Mann gets more minutes right now next year than Giddey does.
I asked Will, did the Thunder pick a better point guard at 18 than they did at 6?
For what they need right now, basically on their team, on their roster, I don't know. Skill-wise, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know skill-wise necessarily if Trey Mann is better than Giddey, but, I mean, he's going to play more. I mean, he offers him scoring. They need scoring other than Shea.
Yeah.
That was one of ESPN, that was their top Thunder need, was they need a second scorer to put alongside Shea, because we're all under the impression that Kemba's not going to be here. If he's here, it's going to be for a couple of months.
It's a rental. Yeah.
Right. And, I mean, I guess it depends where you look at it. At the longest case scenario for Kemba is that it's just like Al Horford, where he plays a couple months and then they just tell him to go home, even though he's healthy, and he just kind of sits out if they can't make a trade.
Yeah.
So,
no, it's puzzling. And again, like I don't. If they had taken him at 12, Aaron, or 14 or 16, I think it's a completely different conversation, right? Like, I think there were players on the board at 6 that seemingly give you a lot more than this guy does. And when you're picking at 6, like, I think there's an expectation that you're getting a guy that is at least a starting caliber player on your team, because if you're the 6th pick, you're probably a bad team.
Yeah.
Basically, they picked a backup point guard that might not even be the backup point guard.
I don't see how he is next year. I don't see how on the depth chart right now, going into 2021-22, if the roster stays the same, how he's above Shea, Kemba, Maldon, and I think
and he's going to compete against Trey
Mann.
Mann.
It's probably a wash, but Trey can score,
Yeah.
so Trey Mann's going to have the edge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's positives there with Giddey, obviously. I mean,
well, sure, yeah.
Even 6 was high for him, but I mean, nobody really had him falling below like 12 or 13. So it's not like they reached like a crazy amount for this dude.
He's not a second-round pick.
No, he's a lottery pick for sure. But he would have made more sense on a team like Portland, maybe. Well, I mean, you don't want to take the ball off Dame's hands, but like a team that has a lot of shooting, and you kind of just need a guy to facilitate.
Yeah.
I don't know what off the top of my head what roster that might be. Maybe it's like, I mean, in today's basketball, you really don't want that. You really don't want a ball-dominant guard that can't shoot.
It drags the entire offense down. And I said this to Will a few minutes ago. If you're putting your best 5 players on the floor, number one, I don't think this guy's on the floor because of you're not taking the ball out of Shea's hands or Kemba's hands or, potentially 2 other point guards' hands to put it in this guy's hands in the final 5 minutes. But secondly, if you do put the ball in his hands, he's already a guy that nobody is going to respect from a shooting standpoint anyway, so you've shrunk the floor to begin with.
Yeah.
Plus the Thunder are notorious for not being a good shooting team.
Hey, well, they've
so
got
a non-shooter on a non-shooting team whose best trait is to pass to a bunch of non-shooters.
I mean, it's not a recipe for success, that's for sure.
It's just puzzling in so many areas.
Do you think that was the plan going into the night? You think that 6 hours ago they said that if we're still at 6, we're taking Josh Giddey?
I think that they probably were convinced that they were just going to make so many trade offers to everybody above them that one of them would work, and that potentially, they were just going to be in a position that they were going to be able to get somebody a little higher. The fact that Bouknight was available and they didn't take him is shocking because you want to talk about best fit, he's the best fit, and he's probably the best just right today natural scorer in the draft.
Somebody that can play off ball next to Shea.
Yeah.
He can score. He's a great scorer.
Just go get buckets. I think Moses Moody fit them way better. There were a number of guys that I thought fit them way better than Josh Giddey. I don't know. I mean, Presti loves the international guys, but the point of it all is, like, in today's NBA, to have a guard that struggles to shoot the ball and how detrimental that is to the rest of your offense and what that does to the other offensive players on the floor, I think it's too much to overcome in today's NBA. And to take that position with the number 6 pick in the draft versus, something outside of the top 10, I think makes it even worse. And then the cherry on top of it all is the fact that Jalen Suggs goes 1 pick before.
Do you think there's ever been a top 10 pick that started his rookie year in the G League?
Like, started the NBA season?
Yeah. Obviously, there's been top 10 picks that have been played in the G League.
Yeah.
But do you think there's ever been one that started in the G League?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a chance Kuminga does.
Yeah. That's a tough team to find minutes on, too.
Right.
In Golden State.
And he's so raw.
Yeah, I could see that.
That I could see that for sure.
How hilarious would it be that he goes back to the G League?
The number 6 and 7 picks in the draft are G League
that
All-Stars.
too, but Kuminga skipped college to go to the G League.
G League, yeah.
And then gets drafted and goes back to the G League. I guess he's a millionaire this time,
That probably
though.
won't happen, but, like, it wouldn't shock me.
No.
Especially if, Golden State wants to win. So, like, they're not going to just give him developmental minutes.
No, not at all. I don't know as far as Giddey goes. I can't imagine him starting in the G League. Like, you don't want to pay a guy $3 million and just send him straight to the G League, or what? I mean, it's get $3-ish, $4-ish million this year, but I just don't know where he finds minutes. I mean, they're going to be down in a lot of games. Maybe you just play deep when you're down by 40 at the end of games, but even then, like, you need Teo and Trey Mann and. Like, you need those dudes to get some minutes, too. Like, you need a lot of guys in this team that need minutes. Like, Lute Dort could use minutes. Everybody can use minutes on this Thunder roster outside of – really, Shea and Kemba are the only guys that you don't need developmental minutes right now.
Well, and let me throw this out, too, because as I'm saying all this, I'm also – I'm guilty of, like, putting the Thunder in this playoff mindset. The Thunder aren't going to be playing playoff basketball, and most teams aren't going to game plan against this guy, most likely, for the next multiple years, where they're going to, like, make his shooting deficiencies such a glaring issue for OKC. So I'm willing to concede, at least, that the Thunder, not being a playoff team and playing a bunch of regular season games, this guy will look better than if he were to play in a playoff series where – teams are going to take away your strengths and make you thrive through your weaknesses. So I will throw that out there.
What were there any comps that you had seen on him?
The one that I heard was LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo Ball is like that's a tough comparison because LaMelo Ball is like ruthlessly aggressive.
Yeah.
Like the dude scored 96 points in a high school game. I know it's high school, but like you have to have like an unbreakable confidence or an ego to to somebody just won Magic's ball.
Somebody just won the Magic Johnson autographed basketball.
They won Magic's ball. Nice. You have to have an ego to score 96 points in a game, and that's something that's going to make LaMelo Ball amazing because he's going to walk on the floor every time and think that he's the best player. And I don't know. I don't know. Does Josh Giddey have that?
Killer instinct.
Killer instinct. I'm trying. My brain's dead. I'm not usually up this late anymore. But the NBA DraftNet comp for Josh Giddey is Joe Ingles. I don't know if that's just because they're both Australian.
Why would it? Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah, Joe Ingles is a good 3-point shooter. Joe Ingles is like a poor man's like.
Joe Ingles is a catch and shoot.
Yeah. I mean, he's a Joe Ingles. If they got Joe Ingles, I think that'd be a great that's a great scenario.
Yes.
If Josh Giddey ends up being Joe Ingles.
That's the worst NBA Draft.net comp I've ever heard in my life. Josh Giddey and Joe Ingles, they're nothing alike.
Yeah, I mean, Ingles is a perimeter player that Joe Ingles is like Kyle Anderson, but with a really good 3-point shot.
Right.
I hope that Josh Giddey's not that slow.
Well, I mean, he lacks athleticism, quote unquote, as one of his weaknesses.
Yeah.
And Joe Ingles is one of the. I mean, Joe Ingles shoots a really good percentage from the outside.
I'm gonna be honest too, Colby. I was watching some Josh Giddey highlights, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little brainwashed by today's NBA and the style of basketball that's played, but I wasn't impressed. It wasn't anything. It was nice, but he just feels like a player that's coming into the league of 10, 15 years too late.
Yeah. Yeah. I said earlier, if this pick 20 years ago makes a lot more sense than this pick in today's league.
Oh, he would have been a top 5 pick 20 years ago. A 6'8" point guard with elite level floor vision.
Yeah.
Right. He would have been he might have been the number 1 pick.
Might have, yeah.
With that skill set.
Well, Mobley would have been the number 1 pick, but Giddey might be number 2 or 3. Yeah.
He's still young. He's only 18. He has played, professional basketball already, so it doesn't hurt. But,
I hope the guy succeeds, and I hope he becomes a really good player. And for the sake of the Thunder, I hope he becomes a big contributor. But it's not so much that I'm shitting on the pick as I'm very puzzled by the pick, and I feel like I'm asking legitimate questions about why this would be a fit and why this would or wouldn't work, because I think there are legitimate questions to be asked in that regard.
We joked about it before the draft started about the Thunder trading back and how stupid that would be, but honestly, if your plan was to draft Giddey the whole time, you could have traded back.
Maybe, yeah.
Who was going to take Giddey? I just can't imagine with the guys that were on the board that Giddey was light years ahead of on anybody's board that you couldn't have traded back.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's the double kick in the junk that Jalen Suggs goes 1 pick before. And it's also one of those things where it's you spent half the season literally tanking to a record level, losing by 40 and 50 points every night to get to the point that you draft Josh Giddey.
You literally gave up because they were a 500 team halfway through the season, and then they said this is going way better than we are, worse, depending on your perspective, than we anticipated it going. We need to, really screw this thing up. But they got a lot of guards. I know that's one thing I know for sure is that Oklahoma City is not lacking for guards.
For sure. All right, man. Final thoughts?
I'm disappointed by the Thunder draft, to say the least. Obviously, I talked about it on the podcast yesterday and last week. The NBA draft is such a crapshoot that, especially once you get out of the top 3, you just have no idea what you're going to get because you don't know how these guys are going to, respond to being in the NBA and how they're going to progress. We see guys like Andrew Wiggins who don't get any better from their rookie year until year 10. And then you see guys like Nikola Jokic who go in the second round and turn into MVPs. Now, obviously, that's the extreme, but you just don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get a Giannis or you're going to get a Johnny Flynn. You just don't know. So I'm not going to say that it's going to be a complete bust and it's not going to work out, but it's just disappointing. I was hoping for something a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was hoping for a little bit more excitement. Just in the draft in general, I was hoping for more excitement, and it was just kind of turned out to be a pretty boring draft.
Yeah.
Like, I anticipated, like, there were talks all day about Ben Simmons being wanting to be moved, Kimba possibly being moved. I mean, I don't think that Dame was ever going to get moved, but there were still talks about Dame being traded potentially.
Yeah.
Like, there were a lot of conversations. Buddy Hield is another guy. I know Russ got traded, but, well, who cares? Like, there was a lot of talk going on about potential trades tonight, and it turned out to be kind of just a mundane draft. And I thought Houston had a good draft. Golden State had a good draft. Obviously, Detroit had a good draft. I mean, if you get Kay Cunningham, you're going to have a good draft. But
Atlanta getting Jalen Johnson at 20, I thought was fantastic.
So there were, I mean, some teams had good drafts, but Oklahoma City is not one that I'm going to look at and say they had a good draft. Like, if I had to grade it, I'd say it's like a C.
Yeah.
It's like at best an average draft.
Massively underwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, he is Aaron Davis. We're going to get final thoughts from Will Brewer as the number 30 pick. And the final pick in this first round of the NBA draft is about to be made, which will wrap up our evening here at Chalk and Chisholm Creek. A night that started out with a building full of hopeful Thunder fans, a building full of promise that the fortunes of the Oklahoma City Thunder were about to change. Smiles at every table, and Will Brewer, it did not take very long into this evening that those smiles were quickly wiped away, that we had a building full of people scratching their heads, looking puzzled, and asking, who the hell is Josh Giddey?
Yeah, definitely. This place was packed, and it was full of promise, like you said. A lot of people just thinking, like, okay, this is the start of something special. Smart market team. You know, we just saw Milwaukee win the championship.
Yeah.
It could be Oklahoma City's turn in a few years. And this is the first building block. And then let me introduce you to Josh Giddey. And then there was just some crickets. So
well, and it's worse when it's first, who is this guy? And then it's, so he can't shoot? He's a guard that can't shoot?
Let me introduce you to Josh Giddey. Oh, he can't shoot. He's just overseas point guard, and he's got a high. Yeah. Then you're like, wait a minute, he can't shoot. Like, I mean, to say the least, there were definitely higher hopes, not only for me, not only for you, but for all of the Thunder fans out there. But you end up with Josh Giddey. You end up with future first-round picks. You trade away number 16, and then number 18, you bring in Trey Mann. So 2 point guards added to the team. And, I mean, we're just going to have to continue to trust Sam Presti's vision and see where it goes.
Sante Aldama is the final pick to the Utah Jazz in the 2021 first round of the NBA draft. The Thunder, by the way, have a couple picks to start, like, right at the beginning of the second round. I would say Jared Butler's a no-brainer as the best player available. They've already taken 2 point guards, so I have a hard time thinking they would take a third, but who knows? They took Josh Giddey with the 6th pick. I'm not sure anything would be more surprising with these picks than Josh Giddey going to number 6. So, Will, final thoughts on the evening, my friend?
Man, definitely had higher hopes. I wasn't expecting the night to go the way it did. I'm not going to say that it was complete disappointing and failure. I'd like to be more optimistic than that.
Yeah.
They got a smart, very high IQ level point guard. And then they bring in a guy like Trey Mann also, and then you add more draft capital. So, I mean, from there, there's not really much else to say, man. Just you got to see where it goes from here. Got to trust in Sam Presti. Yeah, in Presti we trust has been the mantra for Thunder fans for over a decade, and we'll see if Sam Presti's magic once again has landed on the 2021 NBA draft. But fair to say that there's been a lot of underwhelming feelings from Thunder fans about who the Thunder have acquired tonight. All right, that is it for us. Once again, big thanks to the staff here at Chalk in Chisholm Creek. Draft night was amazing. We had a building full of people. It was great to watch the emotions of everybody as this draft took its twists and turns. Also, a big shout out to Kona Brewing. They provided us with some awesome prizes. The Kona Grizzly Cooler, the Kona Skateboard, the Kona girls were out here passing out free Kona beers. It doesn't get any better than that. We had some
Travelers win the Magic Johnson autographed basketball in our giveaway. So again, shout out to Kona Brewing for helping us out tonight. The staff here at Chalk, second to none. Chalk itself, I mean, I love this place. It is, you won't find a better sporting experience in the Metro, without a doubt. If you're looking for somewhere to eat great food, hang out with your family, or just, hang out with the boys and watch the game, like, there is no better destination than Chalk and Chisholm Creek. For Aaron Davis and Will Brewer, I am Colby Daniels from the Colby Daniels Podcast. This has been Draft Night from Chalk and Chisholm Creek, and we will talk to you next time.
The podcast is over.